look at Chappie. He made a Chappie in Chappie, he made a frickin' Metal Gear. I'm
Yeah, he
just
did.
like, and so it's one of those cases where there are directors out there. I'm more in the camp though where, given the amount of CGI you'd need anyways, well, maybe give it to the likes of like Shinji Aramaki or these pure CG studios. I mean, when you look at stuff like Kingsglaive and even to a lesser extent Starship Troopers Traitor of Mars, I mean, you're gonna have to do a bunch of CG anyway, so you may as well just
Sure.
go full animated route. And well, Nintendo has done this before with other properties to pretty great effect. I remember the Animal Crossing film was pretty well received in Japan. I mean, Pokemon. I mean, granted, Detective Pikachu was very much a fluke in the case of, oh, it was crazy enough that it worked,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things where it just, I don't know. To get back on point, I worry. We're basically. I'm thinking we're starting to see a bit of a backslide where Nintendo's going to be the one late to the party, where they're stuck with the bad movies while we end up getting decent ones like the Sonic films. And I mean, I've got faith in Metal Gear Solid because I know the director has gone on record saying that he's a fan, and Oscar Isaac has gone on
Yeah.
record saying that he's a fan. So at the very least, I know that there's going to be a level of passion there, well,
Yes.
barring any interference from Konami. But it's one of those cases where I'm just like, Nintendo, of all the studios, why Illumination? I mean, I understand not wanting to work with Disney, but there were much better studios out there. Or alternately,
They may have
just
been the
have
only
one.
ones making a pitch for it.
Yeah, or alternately, I'd be just like, why not just, work with the studios you've worked with in Japan for decades on a lot of your other properties? I'm sure they would be more than willing to adapt it faithfully and give you that control you're looking for. I mean, I will say this, though. If they were to give one of the Fast and the Furious directors F-Zero, I would watch it because
Well, yeah,
it would
sure.
work.
Sure. And then maybe he could tease a Star Fox movie, and I'd be okay. You know what? Given how he's done car action scenes, I think he could also do like dogfight scenes. So at that point, yeah, you could hand Star Fox over to him, and I think it would be worthwhile. And same universe and all that.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's definitely a difficult thing because like the other problem that I see a lot of people getting into, and by the way, we're live, everybody. Hi. To bring people up to speed, we're talking the Mario movie. I promise this isn't the official episode, but yeah, we're talking about the Mario movie reveal, and we will get into this in a later podcast. But you guys get to hear exclusive opinions from C Tactics as well. Um,
Hello.
yes. So I mean, I'm kind of the crowd of like Nintendo is just so. The only word I can look for is timeless here, especially to a lot of people's childhoods. That I just can't imagine really any of the Nintendo properties being done into film, TV, anime, anything like that. And it's just because, to me at least, it is just too easy to screw up.
well,
Um, and I've heard tons of arguments, and frankly, Romney has made some really compelling ones for things like Zelda. And I would be okay with that, but then at that point, I look at other properties like Metroid and go, okay, well, how interested are Nintendo in doing a Metroid movie? Because Metroid has like this on again, off again relationship where it's popular and then it's really not. Zelda has stood timeless. Pokemon was probably the best example of something that should have gone to movies because it's got
y-
that appeal.
yeah, I mean, another example of a character that has made the transition pretty effectively from game to screen, granted, never got a movie, but had a moderately successful TV series, was Kirby.
Yeah,
Because they realized, okay, well, Kirby doesn't talk, and we have all these weird characters, so
and
rather
frankly,
than
like
trying to.
if you put Illumination in charge of Kirby, like that's kind of close to what they're usually doing. So at that point, it might be a little bit easier. But I can still understand why people are like, I don't want to take the risk with Mario because Mario is like 80% of my childhood. I get it. To me, it's an interesting venture, but that's just because I am so starved for something new out of Hollywood that this is fine by me. This is absolutely just fine by me.
Yeah, it's just. Yeah. To get back on point, I am concerned and I worry that we're going to see history repeat itself with this Mario movie, like what we saw with the previous Mario movie that we got. And it irritates me because I look at this, I'm just like, okay, well, Japan got like the decently animated. I mean, they're not great, but you got like the decently animated OVA feature films that they put out. But we got stuck with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo,
Yep.
which, granted,
Which, by the
the
way, did you
behind the
see John was bitching about the cast?
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me, but
Yeah,
considering
it's too white, according to
yeah,
John
and
Leguizamo.
yeah, and honestly, considering the behind-the-scenes nightmare that was with the live-action Mario, with all the rewrites and Nintendo waffling on how they wanted to do it, because first they were like, okay, we're going to take a hands-off approach, but then after there was I think it was like a specific acquisition, either by Nintendo or by a company affiliated with Nintendo in the States that was more family-friendly, that suddenly went, oh, well, now we've got to make this more family-friendly.
Yeah.
And yeah, the film was a nightmare from start to finish. Gaming
Oh,
historian...
no. Yeah, there's tons and tons of issues with it. The only thing that I've seen have more problems was a movie that I don't want to bring up here, but I have to say its name: Food Fight. Food Fight is the one that I've heard had worse issues than the Mario movie, and my only response to John is like, John, you weren't gonna do this movie. You weren't going to do it. You're probably off busy filming the last little bits of John Wick 4. You weren't going to do this movie. Why the F do you care?
Yeah. I mean, at the same time...
when people say stuff like that, it's like they're complaining, oh, well, they should have brought me on. You weren't going to do it, though.
Yeah, and alternately, it's just looking at it with Food Fight, and I can't remember which YouTuber did it, did a breakdown of the actual behind the scenes, but
there's tons of them.
There's tons of them, but one made a pretty good point where the failures of Food Fight...
It was either JonTron or... I know Nostalgia Critic tried to cover a few bits of it, but...
No, this was a more serious... No, this was a more serious YouTuber that actually went into the details of it.
Oh, okay.
Where a lot of the issues with Food Fight more or less had to do with the ego of the producer constantly reinventing the wheel, like we've seen with a lot of projects.
Yeah.
And so with Food Fight, whether or not you believe the footage was stolen, granted, some of the snippets of the original footage prior to the mocap version did look better visually. It's still one of those cases where looking at it, I'm just like, yeah, even if the film had come out in its original state at its intended time, it probably wouldn't have done as well because the gimmick just doesn't... The Toy Story gimmick only goes so far. It works well with toys because there's that layer of suspension of disbelief. We associate toys with imagination.
Yeah.
Food, not so much.
No.
I mean, you could do it in a somewhat if I were to say, oh, I bought the rights to Food Fight for $250, for example, and had to
wasn't the
find a new...
inspiration for Food Fight basically something along the lines of Wreck-It Ralph, where you had things like the Emoji Movie that were trying to capitalize on tons and tons of brands to be able to bring in, and that's what Food Fight was supposed to do. It was going to take all the grocery brands we've known for years and just put them all in one movie.
Yeah, and honestly, an idea like that could work if, the story didn't get off the rails because of the producer not thinking things through. I mean, the way I would do it, again, assuming that I somehow got all the money needed to buy the rights and be like, hey, I'm going to make this film, rather than trying this whole weird mystery thing they try to do, I'd be just like, okay, have it just be a comedy about competing store brand logos in a grocery store, and just have it be that rather than trying to be like, oh, it's a whole separate world. It's like, oh no, just have it be almost like a representation of how marketing is, where you just have the mascots directly competing with one another to get their products sold and use that to inform the comedy. It could work pretty well. Problem is, and it's something I've been guilty of with some of the stuff I've written, is that it's very easy to make things a lot more complicated than they need to be.
Exactly. That's like writing 2010, basically. It's not basic, but it's intermediate. You do actually have to worry about stuff like this. But anyway, we are a half hour in, so let's go ahead and get things started. Let me know when you guys are recording.
Ready.
Sound speed.
3, 2, 1. Pardon our dust, Sea Tactics. We just do this
It's
as
fine.
a tradition. Greetings once again, my friends, to an interesting new episode, a new start on the podcast RSS feed. Welcome to Geek News Roundtable. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome Friday. This is basically kind of the re-envisioned Why We Geek podcast. We're because I'm basically bringing it into the podcast. So for those who have seen that, it is a roundtable discussion where we take a topic. It can be a geeky topic, but now we're kind of expanding it to other things. And we dissect it, we show why we love it, we show why we don't like it, and we try and fix it if we need to, things like that. And with me today is my panel of fellow geeks, fellow YouTubers, fellow content creators, which is very important, and also fellow awesome guys as well. And joining me today is Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, From the Shelf, Rhapsody in Cinema, Martial March, Monster Clash, and independent filmmaking.
Well, more or less, me going back to my roots with my most recently released short film, The Doctor's Last Confession, which is both live on YouTube and my Instagram. So feel free to check that out after the show if you are so inclined.
We will have a link to that in the RSS feed, so people can check it out. I tried to watch it today, but my freaking kids were just everywhere in every place, so I couldn't actually sit down to watch anything until they got sent to the babysitter. But yeah, we will definitely put a link in that for you, Romney, because you are awesome, and why not? Also joining us is Alex the Shadow Blazer, who is joining us from parts unknown and who has officially hurt my eyes because of all the white on his Discord screen. Alex, how you doing?
Sorry I'm hurting your eyes, but I'm doing well. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I've had worse headaches today because primarily I've hit that magical time in every parent's life where you begin potty training, and so you have the hiccups, and that you have successes, but then you also have hiccups and accidents, and those are never fun. And that other voice that you guys just barely heard is a returning special guest. Also, because you guys actually liked him, we did say we were going to bring you on a second time, but a lot of people actually loved having you on that first time. C-Tactics, how are you doing, my friend?
Heya, hiya, how are ya? I'm doing pretty well.
Awesome. Very happy to have you back on, especially when I got such comments in my email as, "Hey, bring the surfer dude back on."
That's right, dude. I'm totally a surfer.
I don't know how they got that, but that's one of the brilliant things about doing a podcast is that you get comments that just make you go, "Huh." Because you try to figure it out in your head, like, huh?
Maybe he somehow tapped into the powers cosmic. Didn't necessarily assume that he surfs the ocean. Could be space. Could be the web.
Are you saying
Could
that
be the Silver
he's
Surfer, you never
Aiden
know.
Rad?
Maybe, maybe not. I mean,
he might be a certain surfer that is silver.
Oh,
Well, not necessarily. Norrin Rad was not the only Herald of
Norrin Rad, that was
Galactus.
his name.
Yeah, because I mean, there was Norrin Rad, but heck, even in an issue of Spider-Man, Aunt May was made into a Herald of Galactus at some point.
Yes, this is true. That's the sound of C-Tactic's brain being busted by Romney's amazing comics knowledge. That I can, in fact, confirm. Because I actually did a random Google search of, like, who has been Heralds of Galactus, because I didn't believe anybody that, it wasn't Aunt May, but, I can't, it was a villain that was Herald of Galactus, and I'm like, there's no way that happened. And then I'm like, Aunt May? What the fuck?
Yep. Learned that because of Linkara.
Yeah, so, yeah, Aunt May was a Herald of the Galactus. But then again, the coolest scene, in my opinion, that will ever exist in comics is when Dracula and Doctor Doom had to meet on the moon to discuss peace or ceasefire negotiations. Basically just saying that they wouldn't interfere with each other's shit whilst they were taking over the world. Yes, Dracula is canon in Marvel.
Comics are weird.
Because anytime I envision that, it's amazing. I'm like, because of course I go to like the stereotypical Dracula that everybody thinks of, like Doctor Doom. It is so good to see you. And then immediately I go towards the old school Fantastic Four Doctor Doom voice of, "Good evening, Dracula. Let us begin negotiations."
you want to count to 3 with me? 1.
Now I need that.
2.
I need it. I absolutely need it. But this is not why we brought people on for weird comic knowledge, although that probably will be an episode at some point. Just finding where me and Romney will just sit together and find the weirdest shit angles that have ever been done in comics, not necessarily just Marvel and DC. But we will do it, damn it, because it needs to be done. So, today's discussion that we're going to be going into is very appropriate because we kind of promised that we were going to do it the week that C was here, but then we got caught up in the PlayStation event where a ton of announcements had happened. And it's relevant because you are talking to 4 YouTubers of varying size in channels, varying experience, and what I mean is like starting at different times and having this many years of experience, basically dealing with however many iterations of the site that each of us have been dealing with. And we're going to be going over YouTube, specifically because you guys have been asking for this for a while, things we would fix on YouTube. Because everybody and their pet duck has something on YouTube that they would fix. It's the most minor of things. I've even talked to, since, you know, I now have kids that go to school, I talk to the other kids' moms, and they go, do you want to know what I hate about YouTube? I always have this happen when people find out that I do stuff on YouTube. You know what I hate on YouTube? This. And it's always something weird, like, I don't get why it takes so long to buffer. Well, maybe you have too many apps on. Or something to that effect. And so today we're going to be taking a little bit of an unpopular opinions angle to this and bring up various aspects that we would improve on YouTube. But because I can already feel Alex in the corner basically saying that this means we should bring in the I Hate Everything channel and start up our own personal sewing circle, we will also discuss, and this is how we will start things off, what is one positive thing that you like on YouTube? And that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let our guest here go first. C Tactics, what is one positive thing that you like on YouTube, the site?
I mean, there are so many positive
and this
things.
can be like as a creator, as a viewer, however you want to do it.
Yeah. I guess for me, you know, because I engage with YouTube as a creator the most, I'm going to go from the creator aspect. And it sounds corny, but it's really not, especially if you have other creative hobbies. And that is just the ability to share what you create with others and have an easy way to gain a platform. I also am a musician. And as a musician, you really don't have many different avenues. You have like Bandcamp and Spotify and all your normal stuff like Twitter and Instagram. But there's something about YouTube that it invites all sorts of creators and it lets you just be creative. And that's I think really the name of the game, especially, you know, me 10 years into this now, I find much more creative satisfaction in YouTube, whereas before maybe I would use it as a social experience. So,
and that's
that is
not
definitely
entirely wrong. I mean, YouTube has kind of slowly been moving towards being kind of a social media platform kind of thing.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess for me, you know, as what I get out of it changes, because I watch a lot of YouTube, not nearly as much as I used to, of course, because as you get older, you have more responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I like what I get out of it now, and that's the creative freedom to, you know, express myself.
Okay, so that's your positive thing. Let's just actually kind of go around the table. Alex, what is one positive thing that YouTube, the site, has done for you?
Well, I definitely can agree with C Tactics. It's just that ability to express yourself, which is, I think, something I've always wanted to do, is express myself in some way. I think that's why I kind of wanted to pick a creative field to study when I went to school. But I'll also approach it from the viewer side, and I think that is just the ability to find so many different topics that just you can be appealing to you, right? Whether obviously you got gaming and you got animation, like for me it's Japanese anime, and you got comics, right? But I think there's a, you know, and it could be those, it could be the fun pop culture stuff, but there's also, like, you know, if you want to be academic, you know, there's channels dedicated to medicine. For me, over the past year, I've discovered actually a lot of history channels that are dedicated to history, real history, not the history channel's definition of history with aliens and shit.
Well, let me
Aliens.
expand on something that you basically said, because like you both have basically said, okay, you're anime YouTubers, you do a little bit of music, C Tactics. So at that point, the other cool part that happens here is that there aren't just generalized anime channels anymore. Okay, you can have anime review channels where kind of like how you guys do. You take a season of anime and you review it episode by episode, and that way people can digest it that way. One of the things that I like, because it's stupid and sometimes it's funny to hear the stupid, people will dedicate themselves to in-depth lore of a given anime series. So, for example, Dragon Ball fans love to analyze the numbers on is Ultra Instinct stronger than Super Saiyan and things like that. And sometimes those discussions can get kind of silly. So you have those kinds of channels. You have the what if channels, which are basically like, what if this anime character and this anime character met? And so you have then the spider web that starts up of various other topics that can happen within it. Dude, for crying out loud, I just barely found a channel through sheer happenstance of animators trying to show people how to do the anime style. So at that point, you can now throw drawing into that and have a subgenre within it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the interesting I don't know, I can't think of a better word right now, but like a ramification of the niching down and targeting, which is I think what YouTube these days is all about. It's all about cultivating an audience. So it's in that sense, democratizing YouTube channels and genres and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You have these highly like, I don't think I watch a YouTube channel that is just generally everything. I think the only channel I watch like that is like Good Mythical Morning. And that's it.
Yeah. There really aren't any general. It's funny when I say this, because a lot of people will scream at me later and say, well, you technically clarify yourself as a general geek channel. And I only do that because I could literally want to talk about Star Trek one day and Babylon 5 the next. And so at that point, I just kind of let creativity go where it's going to take me.
Right.
But you don't really have general geek channels anymore. You have stuff that's how is it that YouTube actually puts it? They put it that they want to build communities within communities. So at that point, if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, there's a bunch of other little communities that you can get into that then you can become a part of, kind of thing. And that's really what they're kind of aiming for.
Yep.
So
it's smart. It's very smart.
Yeah. Romney, what is one positive thing you like that YouTube has done?
Well, this was a bit of a difficult thing, and given that both C-Taxic and Alex have kind of hit the previous two examples I was going to use...
This is why I did it, because...
The third, I guess the other strongest positive... Now, I'm not going to say this is something YouTube specifically did, but more something that YouTube has allowed to happen, and that is allowing a platform where people can rally together for a greater good. Those of you who are longtime viewers of my YouTube channel, all three of you, probably recall when I did my review of The Fault in Our Stars, I made it clear that at the time, I considered myself a nerd fighter. The Vlogbrothers was one of the major channels I had followed. I had followed them since I was in high school. I mean, people can find old Project for Awesome videos that I did back then. For those of you who don't know, the Project for Awesome was an event started by the Vlogbrothers where it basically was like, hey, let's game the system that YouTube set up with these algorithms and try to bring attention to a lot of these charities that could use more attention and use more support. And after a number of years, it became a large enough event that YouTube themselves decided, hey, let's make this into an actual show that is like a telethon where people could help raise money to support a lot of these charities. And I'm not even talking just the main charity, the Foundation to Decrease World Suck, that both the Vlogbrothers started. There was a lot of good that came of that. But then on top of that, in addition to coming together for charitable causes, I mean, we famously remember stuff like the Ice Bucket Challenge and how it raised a lot of money for ALS research. But there's also cases where it gives a platform for people who genuinely want to make the world around them a better place. Using a more personal example, another channel that I follow is Jaxblade, who's a fitness YouTuber who kind of uses anime and video games as a way of exploring fitness topics and be like, okay, like one of his famous stuff series is Would That Work Out, where he looks at training routines that are shown in anime and actually applies his knowledge as a personal trainer to be like, okay, is this something you could actually do to get in shape?
Please tell
And
me
if
he
it's
has
something
done the One Punch Man workout.
Oh yeah, he's done the One Punch Man
Yeah.
workout. He's done the Demons, like One Punch Man, Dragon Ball, Demon Slayer. If you name it, he's probably done a video about it if it's come out.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where if it's something that isn't feasible in real life, he finds a good corollary to real life training. And well, as a result, I actually ended up subscribing, and I actually do use his fitness programs to help stay in shape. And well, that's something like that just wouldn't really exist if not for something like YouTube. And so YouTube as a platform has allowed for people to come together to either for the sake of charity or for the sake of larger causes, but it's also given a platform to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to serve as a positive example. Granted, that's a whole separate discussion regarding, well, social media in and of itself, but I guess that would be the one positive that I would give to YouTube, is that it allowed for those sorts of events to happen. I mean, you wouldn't see something like the Project for Awesome happening on a television station.
No.
You would have something more akin to, well, Jerry's Kids, where it's clearly more like, hey, we're basically getting random celebrities to appear. I mean, it's the same reason why Red Nose Day just never caught on here in the United States, because since television is so heavily corporatized, it doesn't have the same gravitas as it does in Britain, where since television is partially controlled by the government, when you actually have comedians come out of the woodwork for Red Nose Day in Britain, it actually means something, as opposed to here, where it's like, oh, here's a bunch of celebrities who are wanting to stroke their egos by pretending to actually support charity when they couldn't really care less and they're too rich to care. But again, whole separate rant for another day.
And the other thing that I would say that also kind of came out of that is because I believe that was the thing that sparked up basically YouTube integrating it into some of their other events that go on throughout the world and throughout the year. Because I think that's how, like, VidCon would have charity events going on, and it's become like a yearly kind of thing. And I think that's how, I don't know what they're called, but there is an internal office within YouTube that kind of handles the charity events amongst, like, the bigger accounts. So at that point, because I've heard bigger YouTubers mention that they've had to collaborate with YouTube to be able to make it all work. So I think that also was kind of the catalyst to make that happen. And for YouTube as a whole to kind of integrate it and be able to make it work. And I will also state that to me, like, celebrity telethons have kind of run their course. I actually do like seeing charity events that are being done on YouTube channels because they do seem to feel a lot more genuine. It's not just, like Romney said, it's not just you're stroking an ego here because you're so nice to everybody. It's literally like we are taking time out of our day or out of our lives to be able to do this. And in some cases where it's like a 24-hour stream, you kind of see like some of the consequences of that and why it's important that they do it, kind of thing.
And to add to that, and this is pretty much telling, when most people do these events, a lot of people after the fact covering focus on like, oh, here's this performance that so-and-so did.
Yeah.
Here's this like stand-up routine that this comedian did. But when they did the first like major YouTube-supported Project for Awesome live stream, the most requested, most viewed moment from that live stream, it wasn't a musical performance, it wasn't a comedian performance, it literally was a segment in which John Green was talking about the This Star Won't Go Out Foundation that was founded in honor of Esther Earl, a girl that he had met through the Wake-Up, who specifically requested to meet him as part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And again, it was that moment of sincerity where you see John kind of break down, because prior to that event, she sadly passed away, and basically kind of gave an idea of, oh, what was something that you would want us to do in commemoration of your birthday. And you see this moment of sincerity, someone who's normally very composed and very eloquent, struggling to keep it together as he talks about how important meeting this person was and what her legacy is going to be. And so it's one of those cases where that was the most requested moment. Literally, when they uploaded highlights of the other stream, that was the moment in all the comments everyone was requesting of, hey, we want this moment this was an important moment. This is what the Project for Awesome was about. None of this whole like variety telethon stage show things. These moments of sincerity, these moments that show we're doing this because we genuinely want to make the world a better place.
Yep. So for me, the one positive thing that I will state, it's a little old, and frankly, it was a fix that needed fixing for a long time. So I will give YouTube the pat on the back that I have been giving them for years. Thank God Almighty, you got rid of the Google Plus integration. Well, I mean, you got rid of Google Plus entirely, but Alex knows my personal war with this. It made my life a living effing hell running 2 channels and basically YouTube forcing me to utilize a social media platform I don't use. And especially the one thing that I absolutely hated on it, and Alex, again, you can attest to this, when I had specifically branded a channel, see, I have a screwdriver, I'm about to hit something. I had specifically branded a channel, and instead it moved everything over to my name. And I'm like, what the fuck? I specifically named this thing Draken Shadow. I specifically named this thing Drac. Can you please put it back? And yes, this thing was endless hell for me. And the second that I saw all of the integration leave and Google Plus die, I probably was the only one in the world that was just dancing over a fictitious grave. Because
you weren't alone.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think you were
was
the only
alone
one.
that night. I was alone that night, but I was just, oh, thank God, because I don't have to deal with the shit anymore. So I will give that to YouTube and pat them on the back here. And I get that a lot of people would be like, well, the social media integration on YouTube is still them trying to be able to do it. Yeah, but it's better.
Yeah.
Google Plus integration never worked.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't so much like they chose out of benevolence. It was because, fine, no one's using this and we're tired of sinking money into this platform. I guess we'll get rid of it.
Yes.
Fine. You all happy, people? It wasn't really a decision of benevolence. It was a decision of, fine, we know when we're beat.
Yeah, so I will give them that. They did that, and I've never had to deal with it again. But on the same note, like, I really wish that they would reconsider how they run the social media aspect of YouTube. Maybe this is on my list, but yeah, they've basically kind of gated it to creators of certain amounts of audiences, and that's a little weird to me because this, like, I don't know how many times I've seen a YouTube training where it's just like, communicate with your fans. Well, there's a way that you can communicate, and you're not letting people use it. And I get some of the reasoning that has been given on that, but let's actually get into that. So we've done our positives, so nobody can say that we haven't been positive about YouTube, because everybody's negative about YouTube. Everybody has a problem with YouTube. We have done our due diligence, and therefore, trolls, you can shut the F up. C-Tactics, I'm going to let you go first here. So what is one feature or one aspect of YouTube that you would like fixed? And you can even say like how you would fix it, but this thing bugs you so much as a viewer, as a creator, and this is why it needs to be fixed, kind of thing.
So there's this thing, I hate this so much. This has caused me so much just mental abuse, so many hours of therapy. Literally. There's this feature in the YouTube Studio beta. For those people that don't know it, whenever you upload a video, it'll rank out of your last 10 previous videos, out of 10, where it ranks amongst them.
Yeah.
When it reaches number 1, confetti will pop. For 2 and below, it's basically like you failed. YouTube basically gives you
you get like, the Smash Bros. Clap.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Like, if you get like an 8 out of 10, people are like, or YouTube is like, oh, your audience is not choosing to click on this. Like, what's going on there? And it's like, as a creator, I know I did something wrong. I like the 1 out of 10 feature. I think that in general is totally fine. But I do think that adding the verbal abuse from a computer generated program or robot,
yeah, that's the problem.
That, and what I would do is I would take out the wording, I would take out the confetti, make it clinical, make it as boring as possible, because almost every other aspect about the analytics is as boring as possible. And that's
Yeah.
the way it should be. It's the objective, cold, hard facts, man, about what you're doing in your channel. I don't need to be told by YouTube that I suck.
YouTube is a very
fact of the
big,
matter.
like, have you ever heard the term East Coast WASP? YouTube
I have
is
not.
the equivalent of an East Coast WASP, where basically it's that snooty person who constantly is berating you, but making it sound kind of stingy and haughty and all that. And somehow, whoever wrote those, because it's not just in the top 10 stuff. I've seen it happen with YouTube Academy advertisements, where it feels like the AI is talking backhandedly to you.
Yeah.
And and I've seen a lot of people say, like, you really ought to change this to basically Star Trek Computer, where it's just it's just straight up analysis, like you were saying with the analytics. It should not
Right.
it should not have any kind of inclination that it's judging you. That's the equivalent of, if people in video games know this term, the Xbox Ninja Gaiden, when you died in it enough times, you could unlock what is called Ninja Dog mode, which is their equivalent of an easy mode. And basically what would happen in it is every 5 deaths, oh crap, what's her name? Ayame would come in and backhandedly insult you for not being able to get this down. And that's what YouTube kind of feels like when they do this.
It does.
It's like a weird effed up backhanded compliment that just, it should be straight up analysis is what it should be.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, when you get the 1 out of 10, it's the best feeling ever, because the confetti is going out, and at the end of the day, even then there's negatives to that. Like, even if like you got confetti for every single one of them, even then, like, YouTube doesn't know why you're uploading this video. They don't know who the video is for. What this pushes the creator to do is then say, all right, so that video got a 1, ranked 1 out of the last 10. That means I have to replicate that over and over. And so your content gets stale, because it's telling you, oh, your video did great, so just keep doing this. And I just don't, I think that plays with you psychologically. I don't think that's healthy at all, to have a $1 billion corporation manipulate you in such a very subtle way.
It's why in a lot of cases I've said to a lot of people, I'm not playing the YouTube game anymore, because I was getting to a point where I was relying so much on that stuff, and then I'd get a backhanded statement like they do, and it pissed me off the rest of the day. And because, like, at that point, it's like, oh, it wasn't necessarily top 10 or anything like that, but they make some backhanded compliment or backhanded statement about my watch time or something like that. I'll be like, motherfucker, you're a fucking computer. You don't understand how hard I'm working on this. And so, like, I just officially said, okay, there are elements that an AI cannot analyze, and that's what I'm basically aiming toward.
Yeah.
Because if I aim for this, it will literally make me have a heart attack.
Yeah, like every week I do a live stream on my channel.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the King of Anime Podcast. It's just a fun podcast about seasonal anime that's new, that's coming out, that people are interested in, or that we're interested in, either one. And I do that every week to, like, maybe the VOD gets 150 to 300 views. Sometimes, when we're doing really good, 10,000. But typically, the average audience is pretty small. It's about 10 concurrent per week. I like that. I like it. We can handle it when there's 100 or a 10. We like it no matter how many viewers there are in the chat.
Absolutely.
But YouTube doesn't understand that. I don't care if that podcast gets 150 views a week, or 10,000, or 1 million. Like, the podcast is not for anyone but myself, and for the people I do it with.
Well,
and it just doesn't understand that. So they're like, you're a failure.
You could probably attest to this, man. Every podcast, every video is an experiment. Every video is just you expressing yourself in maybe a different way each time. And so at that point, it's more along the lines of, this is how you're creatively expressing yourself. It's not necessarily that we're worried about numbers and all
Right.
that. They're basically taking the Markiplier or the PewDiePie approach to everybody, and not everything is going to stick like PewDiePie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, in my opinion, I think the smartest people on the platform are the people that figure out quality over quantity, and people that understand that
Yep.
have unlocked true happiness on this platform.
Yeah, there's a reason creators like JonTron have sustained an audience the way that they have, is because, you know, you may not like how often John puts out videos, but John has earned the respect of his viewers because he takes so
Yeah.
long to put out that content.
And it's good content.
Yeah.
And when it drops, just like me, I'm hopping right on that JonTron video and I'm watching it the instant I see it. in my
Exactly.
feed.
And you know it's going to be a JonTron video because that's what he's
Right.
going for.
Yep.
So, okay, Alex, what is the first thing that you would change on this?
I think mine probably would fall a little bit on the technical side of things, and it is just sort of the messaging system and the right. It's very inconsistent. It's like I also belong to a Discord that C Tactics runs. I talked to quite a few of the people there, very friendly with a lot of them, and
Yep.
many of them have been trying to give my channel a bit of a boost by leaving nice comments on my videos. And one person in particular left a lot of great comments on all my videos. I didn't see a single one of them until I started going through my social feed just to double check and clean a few things up. You know, which is sad. At least I acknowledged him later in the chat, and he perfectly was understanding. But
Yeah.
so it's just the message system is so inconsistent. A lot of times their systems are just so inconsistent about when they work, when they're buggy. I get it, bugs happen and technical snafus can
there-
happen.
I'm genuinely curious on this because you guys have more experience on YouTube than me. Is there ever a point when that system worked?
Sometimes it
I-
works great, but sometimes it just doesn't, and I don't get why.
I think it's made to work inconsistently on purpose. I'm
Could
pretty sure.
be.
Which
Which
is
That's kind of my
confusing.
issue too, is like I want to be able to have that interaction, and like if somebody leaves a comment on a video, I'd like to be able to see it so that maybe I can reply to it. Maybe it's a question, or maybe it's honest critical feedback that I would like to be able to answer. And I will literally get people going, I left this like 2 months ago, why haven't you responded to it? Because I literally didn't see it.
hmm And that's happened to me. Or sometimes somebody leaves an all right comment. It's like nothing really, maybe not super positive, not super negative. But it's like, okay, that's something I usually just delete troll comments out the gate. But like, okay, if it's a comment that maybe it's a bit trolly, but I can respond to it earnestly, then I'll still try. But sometimes I see those comments pop up in my comment feed, but whatever reason they get filtered out and I can't find them. I can't find them in like the
Yeah.
junk filter. They don't appear in the comments
Yeah.
at all. And it's like, well, okay, I can't do anything about this comment. I mean, it's not
I'm
there,
gonna
so
be
I guess
hitting
it's
this.
not going to cause problems.
This
but-
is on my list too, but there's a specific thing that irritates me about that. But yeah, no, I absolutely. The best part is like, okay, so you'll get the notification for that happening, and then you can never find it because YouTube has basically just decided things for you that it's either too snarky or something like that, and it goes invisible.
Yeah, and concerning comment engagement is like such a big part of how your videos kind of get a boost and how they get recommended. It's really obnoxious that YouTube's algorithm just arbitrarily decides what comments I can
Mhm.
see.
Well, it's basically them coming in and saying, we don't like how you run your community, so we're going to moderate it for you, kind of thing. And you get creators all across the board that either like certain comments or moderate the comments in their own way, and YouTube kind of steps in and says, you can't do it that way anymore, even if it was just, oh, well, I only take things out when I think that they're being a little too snarky or whatever. And at that point, it kind of goes against what a lot of YouTube says, where they want to give freedom to the creator to be able to do that, and then they take it away from them.
Mhm.
So, Romney, C Tactics, anything you want to add on this?
I guess for me with comments, I don't really have too much complaints about them other than the people that populate them at times. I will share an experience, and maybe you guys have experienced this before, but beginning of the year I experienced, and the end of last year, a lot of success. Lot like pretty much every video I uploaded was getting hundreds of thousands of views. It was insane. But the comment sections were horrid.
Yeah.
Horrid. Just either, straight up just dumb people that are mean for no reason, or people that just spoil shit. And I wish there was a better way for, as a creator, to filter those comments. And I know there is like, you can put in like keywords and stuff like that. But I would like something a little bit more robust, because simply just entering the keyword, pressing enter, that works. But
then they
as well,
find
there
other
is
ways
no-
to do it.
yeah, so they put like spaces in between.
Yeah.
So like Roger dies in episode 4 of next season. It's like, oh great. I like literally like, no, I put in the tag Roger, so that it would get caught by the auto filter, and didn't work. So
Yeah.
a little bit more robust options on how to tweak it and stuff, I think would, for me personally, as a person who covers a lot of stories,
Yeah.
and
Well,
anime
and
and shows,
in some cases,
would like that.
I've literally seen like in anime channels, like manga readers just being trollish to the fans on that, and just spoiling everything because they're like 10 books in, and to which
Attack on
at
Titan fans.
at that point, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this: if anybody has ever seen Mighty Keith's video on manga fans versus anime fans, I'll find a link, guys. It's absolutely hilarious because it's true. Romney,
man.
anything you want to put it on this for the comment section?
Honestly, not really, but that's just because I haven't really thought about the comment section in literal years, because, well, my videos never really got a lot of comments, even when I was actively uploading every single week, because, well, honestly, the only time I ever had a real uptick in comments was when my opinions on certain films, when I was doing weekly reviews, didn't line up with everyone else's. I mean, the most notable example being Mad Max Fury Road, and people just jumping down my throat because I didn't say the film was the greatest film ever, which I still don't think it's okay, but it's not like it was like this great cinematic experience. It was one of those things where, hey, I hadn't seen any of the previous Mad Max films, so that was my takeaway.
Yeah.
And, well, then when I enacted my embargo on the Marvel movies, naturally you had people come out of the woodwork that I know for a fact didn't watch any of my reviews, didn't care about my content, but being like, your process on reviews is wrong. You're wrong. And then it's just like, I really like your channel. I'm just like, you didn't watch any of my goddamn videos, so why the hell are you commenting? And so after a while, I just stopped caring, because it's like, well, my videos rarely get any real comments anyway, and, well, at this point, I'm just like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I don't really get any views anyway, so I'm just like, whatever. F them kids.
Yep. That's why I like how we're taking on this discussion, is because various amounts of experience and where we're at is way different than maybe when we started the channel too. Because like maybe when you started, you did care about that, but now you just kind of hit that point creatively. It's just like everybody's a critic. Like you were literally that animal in the Flintstones going, everyone's a critic.
Yeah, except it was more of a case of, well, can't please anybody, so.
Yep. So one for me, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to have here is features, because I don't understand why this still exists, especially since YouTube changed how this process works years ago and still thinks that it's relevant, that it should be utilized. And the first one that I'm going to start with is, so the algorithms changed years ago to basically favor watch time over everything else. Like, view count matters, but things like notifications and subscribers have now been just basically ousted in favor of higher watch time. And so at that point, I remember when subscribers meant something on YouTube. where somebody has this many subscribers and that's how popular they are and that's how good their content is. Now that number to me is meaningless because you haven't there's literally no algorithmic way to be able to bring up people who have this many subscribers in this category and therefore gets a feature. There's no longer a way for that to be able to adequately be done. So at that point, I'll also kind of implement what I would do to fix it. So my problem is they took all meaning out of the subscriber number that a channel has. But what's funny is, in order to compete with Twitch, they added the join button, which is basically, if you guys don't know what this is, you can pay a fixed amount monthly to the streamer, the creator of your choice, and be able to support them that way. And it's to mimic the way that Twitch does subscriptions. Because once you hit that affiliate status or the various other tiers of that, you have a subscribe button, which allows for them to be able to pay you monthly for that and be able to support you that way. And also, you get a cut of whatever Amazon ads play on your Twitch stream, kind of thing. But the way that the current subscriber number works is utterly meaningless in any of the back end of YouTube. And so what I would propose is that, and I know that this is going to change a lot of things, for example, in the partner program, but they ought to just remove that number. They ought to just remove that feature entirely, because either people aren't getting your videos. Like, if they subscribe to you, they want to see your videos, right? See? So at that point, YouTube will then just decide on any given day whether or not they get the notification that you have a new video. And at that point, either they're magically unsubscribed from your channel or something like that. And that's why I'm saying this number has become meaningless. And what really it should be done is they should remove subscribers entirely and just make that join button a subscribe button. Because that's basically what they want to do anyway. They want it to be like Twitch subscribers. They just don't want to get hassled by Twitch that it's got a subscribe button to it. And look, I get that a lot of people really do like, okay, subscriptions mean something to them, but algorithmically, it doesn't anymore. Because everything is based on watch time, everything is based on your views, everything is based on your other analytics. Aside from that, if you want to be able to get into, say, the suggestions feed, your subscriber count is not being added into that at all. So with that, anything you like, do you guys agree, disagree?
I think you should keep the subscriber button, because I think subscriptions is what makes YouTube stand out.
Okay.
At least still. I do agree that, like, 100% though, that subscribers mean nothing. And I mean, they show your progress at this point. It's nothing else, honestly, because you could, like, for example, for me, like earlier this year, had a bunch of videos just blow up out of nowhere. Yeah, sure, I gained a bunch of subscribers, but I was getting consistently 150,000 views like every couple days from returning viewers.
Yeah. And
that's, I think, a statistic as well that people, when they go into their analytics, really need to pay attention to. It's not about your subscriber count anymore. Look at your subscriber count as a personal growth goal. And once you do that, you're totally on track, I think, mentally, wise, on how you should approach it. And I think a lot of people should focus on returning viewers. The higher
I would
your
agree on
returning viewers are, the more your audience grows with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that change. Honestly, I think that's a fine change, because they've made subscribers not matter. So, like, if that is the case, then just focus on returning viewers. I still think they should keep it, because there are people that are going to want to see that initially. And I think that initial bump of viewers from people is very important. So I do disagree a little bit,
but allow for us to be able to acknowledge that, because, like, tonight specifically, I'm not going to pick on anybody because we have a live chat. Hi, live chat. We're very happy to have you.
Hello.
We have a returning viewer. This viewer can't join us all the time. And so at that point, wouldn't it be cool if I had a button that I could, like a welcome back button, that I could immediately press and acknowledge that they did that? Because that makes them feel good, you know? And
Yeah,
they
at
won't
that
even let me
point-
do that.
Well, they themselves don't let you do that, but there are ways to do that. You can do like Streamlabs. You can
Yeah.
set up your own thing and download a bot or whatever to do that kind of stuff. It's just, at the end of the day, it's. I think it would be cool to have like automated messages in the chat that are like, "Hey, this viewer has been watching your channel collectively for whatever fun statistic it is," because it not only makes the viewer feel good, but it makes me feel good when and it makes me recognize, oh, this viewer is like has been a viewer for a while. And they do this with YouTube comments actually, which I find is really awesome. If you give a commenter a bunch of hearts, it'll actually have a heart right next to their name. It'll show them how long they've been subscribed for. Just really cool stuff like that. That was one of the best changes in my opinion.
I don't have that, but then again, this is the other thing that I want to clarify really quick. I already know that somebody's going to jump down my throat on this, but you're the guy who has the least amount of subscribers. Isn't that why you were making this argument? No, because I stopped caring about that number a long time ago.
Yeah. Size has nothing to do with anything.
No.
Size, like I said, subscriptions are and for people who don't understand this, fair enough. But for people who are open enough to try and grasp this, like subscribers, to put this in a similar metaphor, I think would be the amount of, I don't even know at this point, the amount of units sold at a store, or something like that, because it doesn't show the quality.
Because you have to look at your videos as a product, and so at that point, a subscriber is basically someone who has bought your product and likes it and wants to support it.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's to track your growth. It's not like your personal growth and your goals. You could I know for a fact there are more channels like me where I have had lifetime, I think something like 8 million views lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have 8 million subs.
No.
That's a lot of views. Like a lot.
Well, and you look at the ones that have like 100,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers, like their view count, can it even be calculated anymore? Like the numbers are so high, it's ridiculous.
And nobody talks about their sub counts.
This is definitely
everybody talks about their views.
This is definitely a difference since I have joined on YouTube. Is like subscriber count actually meant something in a weird way, where you would have people basically saying that, okay, you can't really do anything when they're that high above you, because that's just beneath them, kind of thing. And the example that I would give on how that's changed is, I mean, you dwarf me, C, by how many? Like 100 times at least. And we have you on the podcast right now.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I just like, I want this, if it's going to mean something, it should mean something. But right now, the way algorithmically that YouTube does it, it doesn't mean anything.
I'll say this.
It doesn't get counted. It doesn't get recognized. It gets nothing.
Yeah, I agree. Well, besides, the plaques you get. But other than that, but I will say, it is a better system currently than what we had 10 years ago with White Boy 7th Street doing giveaways upon giveaways to get on the front page of YouTube with
I'll agree with you.
Content.
Yeah.
So
I'll agree with you on that. Like, definitely in the past, YouTube has had improvements in that regard, and at some point, I mean, subscribers meant something. At this point, I really wish that they kind of reevaluate how they're doing this and make it matter, because as you mentioned, like one of the goals that you should have as a creator, at least to some extent, is getting on the front page of YouTube. And it's virtually difficult to be able to do that especially when most of the places where you would get there, guaranteed you're seeing the Tonight Show, like Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Rogen, all of them, like all mainstream stuff flooding that. Whereas when I started up in 2012, 2014, something like that, you'd see creators in there. That's how I came across a little channel at the time called The Completionist and subscribed to him. So,
Right.
yeah. Alex, Romney, anything you want to add on this one?
Honestly, I'm a bit of two minds on it because on the one hand, I get why they shifted more towards watch time because, well, naturally it was very easy to cheat, like mentioned, with either giveaways or bots to artificially inflate subscription numbers, as well as artificially inflating view numbers, and naturally that just doesn't really help anybody when you've got people effectively breaking the rules and making, and it was stuff like that that essentially made subscriptions and view numbers not really matter, was because too many people were basically trying to cheat their way to the top. And so I can understand the shift towards having the focus be more on watch time and specifically audience retention, because honestly, that is a larger indicator. Granted, algorithmically, especially as YouTube went in a more corporatized direction as they go less from being focused on user created content and more to focusing on promoting whoever happens to be paying them the most money.
Yeah.
Naturally, it's kind of gotten away from that, where not even watch time and retention really is as much of a determination anymore, because, well, live streaming is now a thing that exists. That's kind of become the dominant way people consume content. I mean, the types of YouTubers that are now the big ones that are popular now with the, for lack of a better term, current generation of YouTube, these are a lot of the Minecraft YouTube streamers, a lot of these people who do a lot of these larger live streams. I mean, we're a long, long ways away from the heyday of creators like, well, for lack of a better example, the Channel Awesome sort of content. We're a far cry away from AVGN's type content, since, well, those types of channels are basically the old guard. They still have established audiences. I mean, look at where Rooster Teeth is now from where they once started,
Yeah.
but that's no longer the type of content that drives people to YouTube anymore. And YouTube has gotten aware of this, where they realize, okay, clearly live streaming has become the method du jour to ensure that we have eyeballs on these videos, and when the eyeballs are on these videos, that means we can get more ads in front of those eyeballs, or get them to pay us the monthly surcharge for us to not have ads in front of their eyeballs.
Yeah.
You know, assuming that people are, watching it on their phones or on the Roku or anything that isn't a web browser that you can easily install an ad on to bypass the ads because of their sheer obnoxiousness.
Okay.
And so I get it. And honestly, it's very much a complicated thing. There's no real way to really address how to track things better, because it's clear YouTube is no longer about the organic generation of content. It's more of, oh, well, we're basically a social media platform that companies use to advertise their crap. And it's like, it's fine, I guess, if they're upfront about it, but still, it's lost that sense of spontaneity, that sense of, it kind of lost that almost amateur feel it once had, where it's like, oh, anyone can create something on the platform and strike gold, or at least put something out there unique and different. Now it's like, oh, here's this trailer from this movie studio, here's this trailer for this game studio, here's a trailer for this other product, here's a clip from this talk show that they think people who are watching YouTube actually care about watching, even though why the hell would we be watching, clips of these late night talk shows if we're on YouTube? Seriously, what the hell? But they're the ones paying the money. And so it's kind of one of those things where I don't really see this being a problem being fixed, because YouTube doesn't really have an incentive to fix it, because that's not where the money is for them anymore.
No. I agree with you. The money's not there for them, but man, I would like to see this fixed. Like, make subscribers mean something again, because they just don't mean anything in the math behind YouTube. So we've gone a full circle. Has anybody lost a topic on their list?
I've yet to actually address any topics on my list.
Oh, wait.
And
yeah, that's right. Oh, my bad. We completely bypassed you. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
I'm used to it.
I'm bad at this, guys. I try to do like a round table and then I'll F it up somewhere.
Well, and this kind of goes more into the mechanics side of things, but this goes into another aspect, and I speak as someone who can consider himself, a survivor of the Viacom lawsuit, and the simple matter is this, and I know this would be a very long shot, and I know this would cost a lot of money, but it's simply this: get rid of the automation with Content ID, because
Yes.
honestly, that system has been rife with abuse. And honestly,
I wish I had a soundboard just so I could have roaring applause when Romney said that.
Yeah, because given that they basically try to automate everything and basically let the machines and the algorithms do it, it's allowed a lot of companies to abuse and take down videos that are under fair use, or even just taking down videos for arbitrary reasons. I mean, let's not even get into crap like what we've seen with the Omegaverse lawsuit and how people like Addison Kane try to deplatform people for really, really stupid reasons. And honestly, that the fact that they try to rely so much on automation, and I get it, you can't have you can only you can only drink so much from a fire hose before your head's blown off.
Yeah.
But honestly, if they were to implement it, this is what they would need to do to fix it, because we have too many bad faith actors trying to abuse the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and yet there's nothing holding them accountable. And I'm probably revealing more about myself than I should be by saying this. They need to do what Pornhub does, where Pornhub basically says, hey, if your copyright is being violated, you have to submit like manually and show us what video is
And it
violating your
has to
copyright.
be viewed by a human being.
Yeah, has to be submitted by a human being, has to be viewed by a human being, and most importantly, the appeals process actually has to be an appeals process where the burden of proof needs to be on these companies that are claiming to defend their copyright, because, well, burden of proof should be on the accuser, not the accused, when it comes to, say, uploading a review of a film that requires using clips from said film to illustrate the points of said review, as I'm sure most of us on this panel here have had to deal with time and time again. But the fact that YouTube is like, oh, automation and algorithms is the way to go, you need that human element for things like this, and you need to make it clear, hey, rather than, expecting the companies to be well behaved and not abuse the system, there needs to be a penalty for when these companies abuse the system, and not in just these one-off cases like with the Alex Mauer incident where YouTube only stepped in because it actually went to court. And that's the biggest problem, is that there's a lot of these systems that are abused, but YouTube doesn't do anything to hold these abusers of these systems accountable.
Well, and the example that I was about to bring up, we have 2 anime channels on here. How many times has each of your channels been at risk because somebody butthurt over at an anime company or a distributor didn't like the fact that you used 30 seconds of music?
So many times. So many.
You want to know how many times I've been given a strike or Content ID claim? Because I can count you on my hand the amount of Content ID claims, but the amount of strikes is nearing the 50 mark.
Yeah.
And the amount of terminations...
That's what I mean. It's like you have far surpassed. So you've had 50 strikes. So that means technically you faced elimination of your channel a lot of times, and it's simply because somebody's butthurt. They use 30 seconds of audio that is clearly transformative, and they're literally paid to just sit there on a computer and see, oh, he's abusing our copyright.
Yeah. That's. There is this company called Crosswarp, and they're hired by this anime studio. Some of you may know them. If you don't, they're actually fairly big, one of the biggest corporations in Japan for anime, and that's Kadokawa.
Yeah.
They hired a company called Crosswarp, which is basically an office full of people, probably somewhere in India or something like that. I'm not sure, actually. That just sit in an office and peruse YouTube and take down Kadokawa related content. Yeah. Because of that, I have gotten a multitude of strikes from them. My friend recently got his, as early as months ago, got his channel terminated twice, deleted off of the platform, and months later, the channel was restored because YouTube went, oh shit, this is not legal at all. I've had my channel terminated 3 times. 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. Although there is an aspect of this, and I can see where some of the issues come from. because this was something that was actually explained not in a video about anime copyright, but this was actually from a martial arts YouTuber who ran into the same issue where he was looking at a video because the channel itself was Martial Arts Journey. He was looking at a YouTube video that was posted by a well-known Aikido instructor in Japan. And suddenly the channel got flagged, the video got flagged and taken down. And so naturally he reached out to this instructor and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And after a fair bit of detective work, both on his part but also on a number of his channel viewers, he actually got in touch with the instructor, and the instructor actually brought up a pretty interesting point. And it wasn't like a disagreement or anything. It's that apparently in Japan they don't actually have fair use as a concept.
Yeah.
So naturally,
No.
anyone in Japan who sees copyrighted content and not understanding that, here in the States we can use that said content if it's transformative, if it's specifically for news, criticism, or education, and especially if it's content that's in a language they don't speak, they just think, "Oh, they're using our content, we need to take it down." Luckily, Rolkus with Martial Arts Training was able to get the video restored after the instructor explained, "Oh, it was a student who was a bit overzealous. I've talked to them. We're gonna get the video back up." And that's also a bit of a problem. And I understand YouTube operates the world over, but again, that's all the more reason why the automation process has got to go.
Well, and this is also a thing that I want to bring up, and then we'll get to Alex's opinion on this too, because, I mean, the biggest people who could talk about this aren't necessarily me and Romney. It's going to be these guys, because they've had to deal with way more aggressive abuse of this. Like, I know gaming channels, and it's not just companies that go after people, okay? Sometimes it's the artists themselves that goes after them. I have literally seen somebody get a strike because they made a criticism about Baki the Grappler, and the creator literally attacked them because he didn't like their opinion of Baki the Grappler. So at that point, he issued the takedown and the strike for that. And that's stupid. I'm sorry, but if it's a differing opinion, deal with it. People are going to have differing opinions about your stuff, okay? So that's absolutely ridiculous. But I also know gaming YouTubers that got attacked by PTAs. And PTAs coordinated a strike campaign against them. So at that point, this is how easily this system can be abused, which is why, I've been pushing for many, many years the removal of Suzuwachiki. And the only reason I'm saying that is, a lot of people are like, "You have this reason or what?" No, here's my problem. Whenever she sees a problem within YouTube, her answer has always been, find an AI. Find an AI that can run it. Find an AI that can run it, and that way we don't have to hire additional people. And then she'll go in front of a camera and go, "Oh, we're such a job creator. Oh, we just like hiring people." And she doesn't do any of that because so much crap is automated on the back end of YouTube. It's ridiculous. And so at that point, wow, wouldn't it be a great thing if you had a new YouTube CEO that basically went out to, I don't know, Colorado, and basically put up a center where they just review video claims. And it's just a person looking at video claims all day. And sure, that would be very difficult to be able to do, but that's a lot better than having some system run it, which can easily be manipulated. And
I agree.
It can be manipulated, and it can also misunderstand its manipulation. Because you're relying on artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence has to learn. And sometimes it does not learn in the direction that you want it to learn.
Oh my god, it actually gets worse than that, in my opinion. Romney was talking about how tracking down and talking to the person, that issued the claim or for the claimant.
Yeah.
With anime, you don't get to do that.
Nope.
Who do you have to email a corporate email, which you can't email because it's a corporate email. That's
or
off
you'll
the
get
show.
some bullshit printed out response basically saying, "Well, we have to treat everybody like this."
Yeah, I've actually only gotten one response from someone that striked one of my old videos on a manga, and I was so taken aback. It was actually, I couldn't read it because it was all in Japanese, but they took the time to show the panels, translated it, with deep L, and it was like, "Hey, like, we understand that you're a creator. We're gonna remove the strike, and this was like an accident.
Yeah.
And we're sorry that we caused you any trouble. But we just don't want the content as it's presented up on YouTube. And I was floored by this. This is a random. This is the only time this has ever happened to me. Right, a Japanese company. I do this for literally every single copyright strike I get. I try to contact the creator. I get no response.
Yep. Like in the gaming world, I can tend to get a response a little bit easier, but that's when I have game companies that are what I like to call YouTube compliant, as in they understand it and they have somebody who is running that stuff and has a policy for it, and you can get a hold of at least somebody in like an HR department that deals with it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anime companies don't have this at all. They see no need to have it. So at that point, then you get stuck because you can't contact anybody, and as soon as your 30 days are up, they'll just reclaim it, kind of thing. And it's
that's
irritating
another thing. Yeah, they should implement some double jeopardy rule where you can't have claim over the exact same thing again. Like, it's just
that's
like,
basically what
ridiculous.
Romney is saying, and I agree with him on this. Is that there should be some kind of penalty on the company's end for being like just what's the word I'm looking for? So vexing with this content, whether you don't like it or it's just got a tiny bit of your content that you don't want it to have, kind of thing. And so at that point, like, there should be some kind of a penalized system that YouTube can then state, okay, well, we're not going to take this seriously anymore. Because in a lot of cases, especially with these animation companies, in the States specifically, they just hire one guy to work at home and just look for stuff that is their content. And especially if, like, their content is being made fun of. And that's what they do all day. They just claim everything. And it becomes ridiculous. And it becomes a battle that is insane to be able to even fight. So, and what's even worse is that, you know, there are people that can utilize the system and utilize it properly, but for every one of them, there's 20 others that abuse the system. And it's ridiculous. Alex, did you have any thoughts on this one?
No, but you've pretty much said it all. Yeah, I know some of their hands are a little bit tied because of the existing law, but there are stuff I'm sure that they can remedy on their own. Like,
Yeah.
you're right. Just enough reliance on AI, enough reliance on bots, right?
Yeah.
Start bringing a human element, or even just bring the human, even if you have to like mix and match the computer integration with humans, because I guess humans can't possibly do everything, but you know, at some point, yes, you should have a human review it, especially if you have to like me, I've gotten claims pretty often, and then it's like, okay, sometimes I successfully dispute the claim, nothing happens, and it expires. Other times they say, sorry, we uphold the claim. I don't necessarily get a strike, but it's like, but the block stands, and then I have to go through the whole appeals process, which says it's like, okay, you consent to potentially facing yourself to litigation, and it's like, that is
But
when
what hurts
you
even
should
more
get a human
is you appeal.
involved.
Let's just say, like, you get that. You appeal the process. 30 seconds later, you get an email saying, we looked at it and we're not gonna. And you
Dude,
know
that
for a
happens all the
fact
time.
a person didn't look at that.
Yeah,
You know for a
happens
fact they didn't.
all the damn time. I remember I would say the last 15 to 20 strikes that I've gotten. This makes me so fucking angry. Sorry.
This whole issue makes us all angry.
like I would, like, it's insane as an anime YouTuber, because it's so fucking hard. Once again, sorry for cursing. To appeal strikes now. It used to be quite easy because they didn't know how to do it, but now they just straight up deny it no matter what. Like, yeah, I would say out of the 15 or 20 of the last strikes, a majority of those strikes have gotten immediately denied, like immediately.
Yep.
And it's like, you didn't send it to them. Like, is there a glitch? Like, what's going on here? Because I don't know if people know this, but when you send an appeal, it goes to YouTube first. And if the appeal is not good,
YouTube maybe looks at it 14
and then they'll
days
send
later.
it to the claimant. Yeah, and then they'll send it to the claimant. And that's what that process is. A lot of people think, it immediately goes to the person that's claiming. No.
Mhm.
It goes to YouTube first,
Ooh.
which is funny because YouTube says, "Oh, we don't involve ourselves with this process." It's a big
Yeah,
fucking
bullcrap.
lie. They do.
They have to be able to have that to. I can't remember what it is, but it's like some legal loophole. They have to be able to say that it goes to a human first, so that they don't get fined about it or investigations into it. But
And sometimes that's handy because they'll tell you like, "Oh, you need to word this better,"
sure,
which I appreciate that. But
but that's kind of the problem that you're stating, is that you would love to have that human input, and you're not getting it. You're getting an AI response, which is not going to tell you what you did wrong or what content was offensive or anything like that. You want to have that person-to-person interaction saying, okay, 20 seconds in, you need to get rid of this, or you need to blur it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what they need to fix. And again, fire Susan, because Susan's answer to all this is automate it. And even people in Google don't like her. Even people in
Susan's
Google
not
hate
good.
her.
She's not a good fit. She's just not a good fit. She's a corporate shell of a person, and I understand she has a job to do, and she thinks she's doing the job the best she can. But it's obvious she looks at statistics just like every YouTuber does on this platform, and just coldly just makes decisions based off that with no real understanding of nuance or emotion or anything of the sort. And she's not a fit. She's not a fit for the company.
Yeah, I can think of people just as cold as her that would be able to do this job better, because they get the analytics side of it, but they also understand that there needs to be more of a warm presence there. And maybe if they had that warmer presence, Google wouldn't have a lot of the malice and animosity it does, because now Google just looks detached from any kind of personal content. It's not a personal company anymore, kind of thing. And man, if you hired somebody new who actually did something like that, like made a retention center out in, I don't know, the Dakotas or something like that, and got those jobs, man, that's good press. And Susan wouldn't have to worry about bad press the entire time. But yeah, no, I really wish that they would rethink this whole thing. And I was wondering who of us was going to bring this up, but I knew Content ID was going to come up at some point or another. And I completely understand your viewpoint where you just have one asshole claim your video. I don't know if I told you this story or not, but when I did my review for Sonic Forces, it was, long story short, it was a positive review. And because I didn't really have too many problems with it. Sonic Forces was actually kind of fun to play. I got claimed the next day from some asshole that didn't like the fact that I said it was a good game. No affiliation with Sega. No, nothing like that. Dude was just literally butthurt that I said Sonic Forces is actually not that bad a game. Assholes on YouTube, people.
Something like that this was so many years ago. This is the early days of YouTube, mind you, but something like that actually happened to a friend of mine. An asshole just
Dude, it happened
claimed
to
his
us.
video. I know, it's happened to us, but that's just what it reminded me of. It's been a thing forever, and you're right. It's something that needs to be changed, and there do need to be ramifications for people who abuse the reporting system.
Dude, I've literally seen tons of programmers analyze this and try to fix it, and they've come up with at least ideas that I'm like, okay, I would like to be able to implement that and see if it works. The guy who got fired from Google even had one of those, and I was interested. I was like, let's put him in there and just see what he would have done with it, because he kind of looked at it and went, yeah, from a programming perspective, it's not a good idea to rely on AIs. We should really have more people than we have AIs, kind of thing. But so there we go for Romneys. So let's go ahead and loop around again. See what is another feature that you would like to be able to have fixed, or if you just want to complain about it, that's totally fine too.
Well, it's something that we mentioned there at kind of the tail end, and that's really just the detachment that there is of YouTube with YouTube themselves. I would love for
Yep.
there to be designated representatives of each genre of YouTube. And this could grow, you know, into the community aspect of YouTube. So let's say, for example, I'm in the anime genre. I want an anime representative of that niche, of that genre on YouTube to understand the issues that we face, and that will go out and support creators of various sizes and make sure everything is, you know, on the up and up. And you know, on, as you know, as a community member, to be able to criticize them and you know, get work done. And I would love for YouTube to hire representatives for each, just for each genre of YouTube and each niche. I think that will go a long way, because even if it's just, you know, there to save face, at the same time, it's a direct line to YouTube, and we can at least get some sort of answer and some sort of person to you know, to talk to. And as well, you can, you know, you could use this to grow, you know, your niches on YouTube by having this person, this representative or representatives, as a like a like a person that will go on, you know, podcasts or videos, and it'll be like, you know, like YouTube actually cares.
So
Which,
basically be the face of anime on YouTube.
yeah, so like a face, you know, like but a corporate representative.
Okay.
That
That was
is-
actually going to be my next question for you. Do you want somebody of the community to get basically hired by YouTube, or you just want a corporate rep?
It can be. It'd probably be better to be that way, to have somebody, you know, like a, you know, in the anime community, we have people like Gigak or the Anime Man, maybe somebody like them, though they're actually ironically hired by Katakawa, so I'm not sure that they can do that. But
Well,
you
I'm
know,
sure a bunch of
somebody-
people would scream, like, in the anime community, oh, what is it, Mother's Basement? Mother's Basement ought to be the guy. And then
No.
I've seen so many criticisms of the guy that I just, no.
He's bland.
Yeah.
He's bland. Bland YouTuber, to be fair.
Well,
that's
we
coming
just
from
got
me, the
claimed by
most
Mother's
blandest.
Basement, but okay.
Well, that's coming from me as the most blandest YouTuber on the platform, so
Eh.
takes one to know one, right? But but you know, like, yeah, like a community manager or representative is I think something that would go a long way, because as a creator, I am stressed out all the damn time. Like, dude, I just want to break from the mental anguish that is
Yeah.
YouTube. Like, it's lonely enough being a YouTuber. Like, you got to produce content literally, you know, sometimes daily and even weekly. It takes up like all of your life. Like, I haven't been on vacation since, you know, starting YouTube ever, because of YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's 2
It's
years
why in a
out of
lot of cases
vacation.
I said I wasn't playing by YouTube's game anymore, is because when I did that, like, I was wrecking myself just as much as you are now, and I just said, you know what, I'd much rather make quality content than quantity. So I totally get it.
Yeah, it's hard, man.
Yeah. So basically, what you're kind of saying is, like, this person would be a representative, but also maybe a handler of that particular genre of content.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of like what is it? 100,000 subscribers, you get a personal handler with
Yeah,
YouTube and all that. Yeah, but you'd have to hire people to do it.
And they love to hire people, so let's hire some more people, man.
we're such job creators.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like a video game, right? Every video game has their community manager or managers, so
Sure.
that's kind of the same thing.
I like that, but I like it because, you know, it's kind of saying what we were saying before. We would like a personal element to YouTube. Like, if we as creators are creating something on their platform that is either positive or negative, wouldn't it be great to have that personal interaction with someone that is representing YouTube to be able to help us figure out, okay, what did we do wrong? I'm not like, if they don't want to give advice on how to improve your channel, that's totally fine. If they just want to hire a corporate rep, I'm kind of okay with that too, because, you know, it's Google. Google's going to do that.
Right.
My only issue on that is that you would not need one person managing genres. you'd need teams.
Yeah, you're probably
handling
right about that.
genres.
Yeah.
Because some of these genres, like anime's big, but then you look at, I don't know, DIY channels on YouTube, and that's a big market. Gaming is still a big market. And what's even worse about that is that they are YouTube is more interested. I've heard this numerous times. They want to be Netflix. They don't necessarily want to be YouTube anymore. And they're more interested in pushing things like YouTube TV, YouTube movies,
Which is a
YouTube
mistake.
documentaries, and things like that. And so I agree with you. I think that they should do that, and they should just have a team overseeing the content that is here. And I'm not gonna mention this right here now, but this actually kind of goes hand in hand with something that I'm suggesting too. But I think you need to have a team running it, and I just don't see YouTube doing it. Because that means hiring people, and they don't want to hire people.
Yeah.
Well, they should.
Honestly, I think it's a really interesting idea, but I kind of don't see it coming out of YouTube. What I could see more likely, give it 5, 10 more years, 15 years even, assuming YouTube is still around. I'd almost see like things like what we already see in the movie and radio and music industries now, where people are going to probably start having like agents and management companies. They're probably going to be agents and managers that become
I've already
dedicated
heard
to
of,
social media personalities.
I've already heard
and
of agencies like now starting to hire social media reps and online content reps kind of thing. So like, for example, like Romney brought this up, but Brie Larson's YouTube channel is run by a lot of those kinds of companies. She's not that involved with it anymore because she's got to go out and do work. But she then just
Brie
hired
Larson's
people
an
to be able to
actor.
do it.
I get that, but I wouldn't use Brie Larson as an example just because she's an actor. That's more.
No. What I'm saying is like the people that she got hired came through agency kind of thing. So at that point, agencies are starting to hire people to be able to do this.
Yeah, but I mean, we already do see that with like a lot of celebrities and stuff, and like certainly politicians and right. But what I'm talking about are like agents dedicated to content creators, to YouTubers, to not Vine, God, Vine, that's forever ago, to Instagram, right? To essentially people who are now.
YouTube does have shorts. So.
Yeah, but that's to catch up with TikTok now.
Yeah.
Well, but isn't it the same format as Vine? Like
I know, but
like videos that are less than a minute. And yeah.
I get it, but anyway, yeah. What I'm saying is, I'm talking about like dedicated agents for social media personalities, bro. Right? Not people who just are actors or people who happen to have other how am I saying positions like actors or politicians who have community managers that manage their social media. I'm talking like dedicated agents. Like I go down to the Smith and Wesson agency and I go get a manager or an agent to represent me on YouTube Matters or something. That's kind of what I could almost see happening in the future. Like it won't be directly from YouTube, but I could see like in the future people will start getting agents that might start managing them.
I mean, it makes sense. Like a lot of the, if you, especially in things like voiceover, where if you do get an agent, you usually just get like a local agent until you get to that point where you need an LA, New York agent that can manage some of the bigger projects that can come your way. So it would actually be a cool incentive to take some of these agencies locally and be able to educate them on how to be able to handle these aspects. Kind of thing, because you have people. I mean, granted, there are a lot of successful California YouTubers, but there are also a lot of successful Texas YouTubers, and also people who are just way out in the boonies and not close to anybody. And it would be cool for them to have some kind of representation that they can go to be able to resolve some of these issues, or even like work with them to either improve or take care of problems on their channel. Kind of thing. So I completely agree with you on that. I think I actually kind of like that a little bit better than YouTube doing it themselves, because then at that point, the other issue that I would have with this is YouTube, in order to maintain a good PR approach, would hire creators. And I don't want that. Why? Because they're not going to hire the creators that are going, they're going to hire creators that they think that they can work with better, which means basically, if people remember when we covered Dear Girl on Twitch being part of the safety council and then quickly having to be disavowed, like, you're going to have issues like that where people are going to have problems with them and they are going to dig up crap about that. And guys, I agree with her not being put in charge. It didn't make sense. But what instead you're going to have done is they're going to take people who are more compliant with their vision and basically give them more power. So you have assholes like Ethan Klein now in charge of YouTube creators, and he can just get rid of whatever he sees fit. And I don't want that at all. Because despite whatever we may not like on this, creators hold grudges. And so at that point, we should not be in charge of that process unless, you actually have to sign something under, whatever legal penalties that you will act objectively. And I don't even think you can do that. So.
Yeah, this whole discussion reminds me of the numerous times that content creators have attempted to create unions to address a lot of these sorts of issues that we've been seeing on the platform. The most notable example that comes to my mind is how, and this was like back in the Radio SLCC days when this happened, was when they tried to found the Internet Creators Guild. And this included people like Hank Green and Bernie Burns as being prominent members, and it just ended up collapsing because it just couldn't get enough steam because, well, unlike, say, the film industry or television or even writing, there's no real way to really rally everyone together because YouTube by design has pretty much made it where, well, if these people aren't creating content, there's naturally thousands of others that are going to continue creating content regardless of what these larger groups are saying not to. And naturally, and I mean, the Internet Creators Guild is one. There have been like 3 or 4 different attempts since then to try to unionize to address a lot of these same issues. The closest attempt that has had any chance of sticking, but again, as Alex has mentioned, it's already because a lot of the people who take advantage of this are already part of these unions, is SAG-AFTRA trying to establish relations with specific YouTubers. But again, that's easy to do when, say, the YouTuber is already an actor registered with the guild, and thus has those specific protections. And so, as ideal as it would be to have someone who, say, oversees certain genres or is like a representative of the different aspects of YouTube, I mean, I don't see YouTube making that initiative, and unless another company or another platform comes along and basically outdoes YouTube, I don't really see anything like that really coming into place until something like that can be proven to be financially and economically viable. But as we're seeing in the current climate, and even as we're seeing numerous hearings in the Senate about what to do about various issues with social media, I just don't really see that happening. And especially considering that YouTube can be home to not just like 5 or 6 different niches, there are literally like hundreds, if not thousands, of different YouTube niches. And so you would have to have representatives that cover a lot of these, because you've got anime YouTubers, but then you've got the divisions within thereof, where you've got like the retro anime crowd, the ones who follow modern anime, the ones that follow obscure anime, the ones that follow anime that's not technically made in Japan, which that's a whole separate discussion. And then likewise, you've got people who review new movies as they come out. You've got people who review older movies, looking back on like doing retrospectives. And then likewise, you've got fitness YouTubers, but then you've got the fitness YouTubers that talk about physical therapy. You've got fitness YouTubers that talk about supplements. You've got fitness YouTubers that post workout videos. You've got fitness YouTubers that focus on martial arts. It's way too nebulous to really be able to say there are these representatives. In an ideal world where YouTube didn't, antagonize its user base, I would almost kind of see it working akin to, say, an elected position, where rather than being like, oh, these are people that are specifically hired, you basically have the specific figures lobby and be like, hey, here's my background, here's my experience, and you basically would have the users vote saying, hey, we want this person to represent us. But we know that would never ever happen, because at the end of the day, YouTube is a private company and they're only really going to do what's best for their bottom line. And until another platform comes along that offers the better service that we're all hoping for in a way that is economically viable and can actually give YouTube a run for its money, there's not really a whole lot a lot of us can do.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say that this isn't impossible, because I actually would dare argue it's happening to an extent. What we're basically asking for is somebody with authority. But I have seen people in specific communities on YouTube basically become like a staple of that community. And basically, like, they look to the little guys, and they're willing to help out the little guys and help them to be able to do better, because it benefits them in the long run too. So some of this is actually happening, kind of thing. Like, I want to mention that, because I've reached out to YouTubers that have done this and have had no inclination to be able to do any of this. One shout out that I'm going to do here is Tipster. I actually reached out to Tipster for my content as well as Draken Shadow's content. Dude actually, like, went out of his way to give me advice, and I actually applied some of that advice over to the channel, and I saw improvement with that. So there are people that are willing to do it. But yeah, again, the argument that we're making is like somebody in power who can actually do that, and that becomes a lot harder. Because it's it's a double-edged sword. There are positives to it, and then there are negatives to it.
Yeah, and especially when certain, and this is something I've seen in not so much the anime YouTube community, but in the animation YouTube community, where they focus on Western animation, where some channels will straight up cannibalize each other, where you've got beefs, you've got feuds, you've got people dogpiling one another.
I mean, what was it? A month ago, T channels were basically eating each other to be able to remain viable. The commentary community continues to do it. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, the most notable example that comes to my mind was how, for some really strange reason that I still can't entirely fathom, was that for some reason the mysterious Mr. Enter ended up being on the hit lists of a lot of these other major animation YouTubers, and for the life of me, even looking at the content, I do not know what set it off. It was literally just suddenly a bunch of these channels, and I'm talking the like Rebel Taxi and Saber Spark basically dogpiling on this one channel, and I'm just like, you guys are all complaining that Enter does the same thing that you all are doing. You are literally doing the exact same thing. It's very much the pot calling the kettle black, but it's one of those things where that's another fundamental problem here with, even with positions of authority, like you mentioned earlier, people got beefs, and unfortunately,
like, let's just say there's a podcast sub-branch. Well, who's that going to go to? Like, some of the biggest podcasts on YouTube, like, specifically. I mean, a while back, we could have said the Joe Rogan Experience, and at that point, I wouldn't have a problem with Joe Rogan, because I think Joe Rogan would be fair on the matter. But now, like, when you look at sheer numbers, that'd be somebody like Ethan Klein or Keemstar. It's like, fuck no!
Yeah, plus that would also that's where you get into the weird divisions, because with podcasts, you've got all the different subgenres. You've got you've got the ones like ours that are discussion based. You've got ones that are news based, like drama based. You've got some that are just basically news shows in all but name. But then you've also got podcasts that are narrative driven, like Welcome to Night Vale or the Thrilling Adventure Hour, or Welcome to the Magic Tavern, which even then
D&D campaigns on YouTube now or podcasts.
Yeah, and that's where you get into the other division, where the narrative-driven ones, do you separate it between the ones that are scripted or the ones that are improv-based, and you see the problem.
Yeah. I feel bad for C. Like, C brought up a really cool idea that I think would be great to be able to do it, but then we all shit on him and basically said there's no way to do this.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's because I speak as someone, not just as like a film critic, but as someone who, made, well, I wouldn't call it a living because I never got paid for it, but made an active pursuit to monitor these sorts of trends, both in modern times, but also in history. And, well, it's one of those things where in an ideal world, it would work. But again, we run into the main problem with YouTube being a private company, and also the annoying thing of terms of service that can change on a whim whenever YouTube feels like it, that we have no say over and can't really, voice any opinions regarding any TOS changes because, well, they're contracts of adhesion.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think we've hit this one on the head. So, Alex, what is your next thing that you would do to improve YouTube? Or what would be the next thing that you would want to see improved on YouTube? I think Alex took a bathroom break. Okay, we'll skip him for a minute. Romney.
Ooh, yeah, I kind of invested a lot of my anger in that first one. So in terms of a second fix that would
Well, I mean,
need to be,
it's deserved anger.
yeah, I mean, and naturally we're all pretty angry about it as well.
Yeah.
But I guess the other major thing that would also need to be addressed, and this is something that YouTube is very much guilty of, having consistency regarding community standards, because that's been another major issue. I mean, lest we forget the likes of the Sam Pepper controversy, with that's where we literally get the meme, as it were, of it's just a prank, bro, where you've got a lot of YouTube channels and some that aren't based in the United States, but even ones that are based in the United States that frequently and routinely violate a lot of the community guidelines, and yet they
Well,
do not get penalized in any meaningful way, shape, or
let me
form.
clarify this really quick because I'm a little confused by what you're saying. So basically, you want a more solid set of community guidelines, unlike the ones that are very broad and vague to interpret.
Not even so much the solid set, but more just consistent enforcement.
Okay.
Because that vagueness is very much part of that, but you also have cases where you've got channels that, again, using Sam Pepper for an example, where a lot of his pranks that weren't really pranks and actually, border on criminal activity, and yet his channel was allowed to stay up. There wasn't really any meaningful penalty until he was actually arrested. And granted, I may be confusing a few facts here, so I'm sure someone in the live chat or someone listening to this down the road will be quick to correct it. But then you've also, another good example would be a lot of the content farm channels that literally upload the same videos, just slightly tweaked here and there over and over again, even though that goes against the community guidelines where you're not supposed to upload the same videos over and over and over again. Yet those content farm channels suffer no penalty. Why? People click on them, they get the views, they get the eyeballs in front of the ads. And so that's another big thing, is that with a lot of these community guidelines, the vagueness, that's a whole separate discussion. But if they're going to enforce it, if they're going to hold these set standards, there needs to be consistency. You can't have one channel. I'm trying to think of a very prominent example of this.
Well, when you say content farm, we're basically talking about, like in the case of anime, where people will put up a specific fight and they would minorly manipulate it, and so you'd get the entire like Naruto versus Pain kind of thing, and then it would go down, and then it like a week later it'd be back up on another channel.
No, I'm not talking that type of content farming. I'm talking like the ones that are like the weird cooking hacks videos.
Okay,
I'm trying to,
all right.
like those ones that basically upload like those like 5-minute crafts and So Yummy. Those types of places where they literally upload the same videos. They literally just re-edit it, shuffle it around, and upload the same damn videos day after day, even though that is literally a violation of YouTube's TOS and community guidelines. No penalty. Whereas I guarantee you, if any one of us started doing that, we would get flagged immediately and have our channels taken down.
Yeah.
And adding on to that further, if it was anything discussing any sort of criminal act, like another example, like I use Sam Pepper as a strong example because he was a YouTuber who did a lot of these questionable pranks that weren't really pranks and were basically illegal, but his channel was allowed to stay up. Yet if someone uploaded on their own channel a video saying, hey, it's kind of messed up that Sam Pepper is doing this, and yet their video gets taken down. It's that inconsistency that's been a problem. And while YouTube has somewhat improved, but more in the sense of that because they're more corporatized, they've improved in the sense of, oh, we're just going to, focus on, who pays us more. When it comes to content, a lot of these YouTube channels are promoting, especially when they promoting things like false information about current events or even about particular people. And I mean, especially when you look at a lot of the drama-based channels and the level of personal details they tend to put out, which again would arguably be considered doxing in these cases, and yet some of those channels never suffer any meaningful penalties, even though it violates these community guidelines to the letter as written in YouTube's terms of service. Some channels get a slap on the wrist, others get their channel deleted. There's no consistency to it, and that's been a major problem that YouTube's had for years, even as far back as prior to the Viacom lawsuit days.
Yeah, and what you brought up one of the other issues that I have on this when it comes to the community, not guidelines per se, but when it comes to how YouTube handles things like doxing, because it's kind of fickle how they've handled it, because I've literally seen them give slaps on the wrist to content creators and to trolls, but then I've also seen them I've seen them put the hammer down in the weirdest situations. Like the one of the best examples here that I will give is Low Tier God, when he was, I can't remember what June the King. When June the King made a documentary on Low Tier God and basically pointed out everything that he basically started up a Billy Mitchell-esque campaign to not only dox June the King, to openly dox him, but also to encourage his followers to go out there and shoot him, kind of thing. And Low Tier God is still on the platform, by the way, might I add. He's still on the platform, and he's suffered no penalty. I mean, the fighting game community has punished him. He's permanently banned from Street Fighter. But in this case, where he's actually basically trying to create another instance of random citizen getting killed for no other reason than he had made a documentary that pointed out all of your flaws, kind of thing. And Low Tier God got nothing on this. I think I even heard that June the King got some kind of punishment when he was dealing with this abuse, but then had the punishment retracted. So it's like, yeah, you need to have a little bit more discretion. And again, you need to have people looking at this. And I would love to be a fly on the wall in YouTube's office and see just how much of that was automated bullshit.
Yep. I mean, again, look no further than a lot of the crap that happened in the wake of the Addison Kane shenanigans. I mean, when you look at how she went after Lindsay Ellis's channel, even though Lindsay Ellis's videos reported the facts of the case in clear, plain language, often using, actual transcripts from the court hearings, and even then, she still tried to basically go after these channels, even though doing so was done in violation of YouTube's guidelines. And another famous example, the Alex Mauer situation, where issuing a lot of fraudulent takedowns, which is in violation of YouTube's terms of service, no meaningful penalty that was ever issued.
Well, and didn't Leonard French suffer a penalty from Mauer because he literally read the transcripts?
Yeah, or at least Mauer tried to go after him, but forgetting that Leonard French is actually a lawyer and actually knows what the hell he's talking about, it didn't hold up to much scrutiny. But again, YouTube only really jumps in and actually does things when there's enough of an uproar, but even then, it's painfully inconsistent. And that's been very much a problem, especially in the wake of a lot of the content that, especially when they started trying to do the whole YouTube Kids stuff, and yet some of the stuff that was being uploaded for kids was really effed up stuff that also would be in violation of these guidelines, but yet the channels promoting it never get touched. Yeah. Nothing, no hide nor hair of it. They're just allowed to upload potentially traumatizing content. Doesn't matter if say it exposes a child to something they should not be exposed to. It's just, it's this inconsistency, and it kind of comes from just a fundamental place of YouTube keeps claiming to care when they actually don't. I would at least appreciate if they would stop claiming to care about the community when they really don't. I wish they would just be upfront saying, okay, we are basically a business now, focused on what makes us money. At least then they would be honest about it.
Yeah. See, is there anything you want to add to that? I think Romney hit all the problems.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. I think you pretty much hit all of it. It's ridiculous. And don't take this the wrong way, Romney, but what you just barely mentioned kind of leads into my next one. So, hey, YouTube, I know you don't like it when people post political opinions that you don't agree with, but you have a bigger problem on your platform. How about you focus on that problem? What is that problem? All the fucking porn and criminal acts that are videos on your platform. How about you get rid of that shit before you start preaching to me that I have an opinion that is against what you believe and that I should be removed because of it? Because I'll guarantee you one thing, I don't have porn on my channel.
Do you have it on your computer, though?
I actually don't.
Don't answer that.
I have to, because I already know that in the comments section, a bunch of my guildies are going to come in and go, yeah, he's an actual pussy. He doesn't have any. So, yeah. Sorry, happily married. But,
Yeah.
no, it bugs me so bad. Somebody actually just barely showed me this. There is a series on YouTube about some dude chronicling his life as a drug dealer.
It is weird,
Popular
isn't it?
channel, by the way.
Yep, that dovetails into that exact same thing. Inconsistency in enforcing the community guidelines when
Yes!
crap like that's allowed to be on the platform.
Romney, I can guarantee you and I both have channels that we 100% vehemently disagree with, that we would rather have stay up than that. Than any of
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like legit, I can't say it, CP is on YouTube as a platform. We have legit porn that is on YouTube as a platform. We have illegal acts that are being filmed and being put on YouTube. So
Yep, there was even a
YouTube,
Yeah, I remember
how
there
about
was
you focus on that shit before you start preaching on your mount?
Yep, I remember there was literally a channel out of Brazil that all they would upload was literally someone skinning and disemboweling kittens.
Yeah.
Like this was a legit channel. That was what they did.
The thing that blew my mind is one channel that was doing this got caught by the quartering. And the quartering like hammered this guy day in, day out. And finally, the channel got removed. We're like, oh yeah, great. Next day, it's back up. With one video removed. One. The rest is exactly the same thing. One video removed. Like, what the F?
Yep. And this is the kind of crap that leads to safe harbor protections being repealed. And honestly, it's stuff like that that I wish our politicians would actually get on YouTube's case about instead of, well, the stuff they choose to focus on, because that's the much larger issue.
The issue here is, and it blows my mind. Even, okay, a lot of people know this about me. I am fairly more conservative than most. And it pisses me the fuck off when conservative senators and congressmen that I support, when they go after things like Section 230 and never mention this shit. Like, this is stuff that we can all rally around. We can all say, we don't like cuties on Netflix, but you want to know what's worse? Actual CP on YouTube that can easily be accessed by your kids. My kids don't touch YouTube. They will never touch YouTube.
That's for the best because, well, as we've quite clearly established in no uncertain terms, it's a garbage hell site.
It is becoming a swamp. It's not becoming, it is a swamp at this point. It's just, unfortunately, there are drier areas than others. So I'm sorry about yelling through everybody's headphones, but Alex and C, do you have anything to add on this one?
I think you guys got it.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is a much heavier topic than you were expecting.
Yes, yeah.
True, but I think that's fair. I think that's
but
totally
it is something
fair.
to be addressed because, like, at any given moment, this crap can get advertised in your recommended feed, and then I've seen this happen numerous times where, like, let's just say a kid who's going through Minecraft videos and then comes across how to build a bomb, and then that creator who is doing the Minecraft videos, not even associated with any of that, they're getting yelled at by the boy's mom, and they're getting harassed by the boy's mom and trying to get their channel taken down because they led that person to the how to build a bomb video, even though you didn't. It was the algorithm that did.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm literally reminded, and this was a Senate hearing that happened earlier this week, where this is why we need younger politicians in office, is because when you literally have a senator asking one of the key people at Facebook if they're going to do anything about Finsta, not realizing that Finsta is a slang for a fake Instagram account and not actually a product they offer.
Yeah.
It's just, this is why if you're over the age of
We have
60...
our disagreements, Romney, but I think we've come together on this. Term limits?
Yes.
Yeah.
Term limits.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're
Especially
old
when
enough
it
to
comes
collect
to
Social
positions of power.
Security, yeah, it's like, if you're old enough to collect Social Security, you should not be in office. Full stop.
Yes.
If you're old enough to survive polio, you should not be in office.
I mean, I can't disagree with that. I mean, it's
Like,
actually right.
if you have memories of your parents coming home from World War II, you should not be in office.
Yes. You are officially detached from all of this. But yeah, term limits would be a great thing. Wow, we got political tonight. Yay! And nobody died.
Well,
so
yeah, but I think we should probably, leave it at that. It's like,
Yes.
that's as political as we're gonna get.
there you go. Alex, we kind of had to skip you over because I'm guessing you either had dog issues or you had to go to the bathroom. So
My mic got somehow my mic got disconnected, but
Oh.
it's good now. So just so
Okay.
you know, Adam, I'm going to be uploading this in 2 parts
that's fine.
called A and B, so you'll know what to look for.
All right.
Okay, so I guess just one last thing I guess I would want to see fixed, refined a little bit is just how the age gate kind of works. I'm an adult, so it's like obviously not talk about anything illegal, just anything that an adult can reasonably consume, right?
Mhm.
I want to see that at least fixed a little bit better, right? Because the age restriction, unfortunately, when you age restrict your video voluntarily or not, it kind of just buries your video.
Yes.
It won't show up in recommendations. It won't show up in feed. It won't show up in
Yeah,
anything.
algorithmically, it's required to not. So
Yeah,
at that point,
and
then people have to dig.
and I made a video quite a few years ago that I voluntarily age restricted. It was a manga review, and so it was kind of a risque manga, quite a few risque panels. So I decided I'll play it safe and kind of age restrict this myself. I figured just be on the safe side. So it is kind of a shame. I like that video, but the only way anybody's going to see it is if I directly share it to people. And I think there just needs to be a better way to handle adult content that doesn't have to treat you like a child, because there are channels out there that like to dedicate themselves to horror movies. I follow one called Dead Meat. He has to probably censor a lot of his content, right?
Yeah.
The channel's called Dead Meat, and he likes to go over old horror movies, not necessarily old, just any horror movie, and like sum up how many people get killed. It's a fun little channel. Go check it out if you want to, because it's Halloween.
I mean,
So-
that also sounds to me kind of like Anime Abandoned, where they would cover a lot of the older OVA stuff, which was super violent and super sexy. And so at that
Yeah,
point,
so-
then you could have I'm sure that Bennett went out of his way to age restrict everything, but shit's just gonna fall through the cracks too.
Yeah, and I mean, if you gotta censor it, you gotta censor it. Like, put blurs, put up obstructions to cover the naughty bits. But
Yep.
I
The
I
censor
just wish there
Kaiser.
was
I
yeah.
love
I just wish there were a lot of easier ways to have that kind of more adult content. I'm not talking like pornography here. I'm not talking the hardcore stuff that you go to Pornhub for, but things that might be a little too hot for most people on YouTube, but it's like, hey, I'm an adult. I'm making the informed decision that I do want to watch this particular content. Don't bury it and be
I'm
able
actually-
to share it easily enough.
I kind of want to expand this a little bit. We're talking about stuff that's kid friendly now, and you can still start up a YouTube channel at 13 years old. Should they consider that? Should they consider whether or not you can? Because I only see that being a legal problem for them later.
Yeah, I mean, especially given some of the stuff that, again, kids are going to upload things that we know now probably not too smart to upload.
No.
I mean, lest we forget what we were currently seeing with the devious flicks trend that is currently taking over TikTok, that has, at least in the state of Utah, a lot of public schools on edge because of some of the crap people pull. it's one of those things that, yeah, that is
Are
something
we talking
YouTube probably
a trend of like the people who would go and lick ice cream in the grocery store?
Oh no, the devious licks trend. This is where, for
Oh
example, one
God,
of
are
the
you gonna
things they would do
educate me
for a
on something?
well, it's not as bad as you're probably thinking, but it's still pretty bad because, well, given that I work at a news station, this is something we've been having to monitor because schools have been sending
Guilt-free.
out letters warning parents about it. This is where a devious lick would be, acts of vandalism. So, for example, ripping out a sink from a public school bathroom, or smashing all the mirrors in a public school bathroom, or doing what some people would call an upper decker, which, if you don't know what that is, do not look it up. But I'm sure if you've seen an AVGN video about the Aladdin deck enhancer, it can be pretty clear. It's messed up stuff like that that's become a new trend for people to do, was basically these massive acts of vandalism that have resulted in like thousands upon thousands of dollars of damage at a lot of these public schools. Again, literal sinks or toilets being ripped out and stolen. It's messed up. And, well, kids are going to be dumb. They're going to do dumb stuff, and then they're going to think, oh, I'm going to upload this online because it's sports and lulz. Only to realize, hey, kind of a dumb idea to upload, the fact that you stole a sink from a high school and took it home
Hey.
because,
Hey, teenagers, are you seeing
You've
like
never done that
all of the
before?
abuse that people like Shane Dawson are getting right now because they tended to be edgy when they first started their YouTube career, and now they feel bad about it? That's gonna be you in 10 years.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, it is.
Yep. And so we've been seeing trends like that. And so, yeah, but we kind of got away from the point a little bit. To get
Yeah.
back to Alex's point, though, regarding, and this is something I've had to deal with because people forget, or people may not remember, like horror movie review series, Monster Clash, I had my videos age restricted a
Yeah.
number of times because, well, horror films deal with some messed up subjects. I know my Carrie video most
That's why I'm
prominently.
saying, like, I just think that age gate shouldn't exist anymore. It should be 18 and above. Kind of
Yeah,
thing,
and in
especially
turn,
for creation.
yeah, but at the same time, to bring it back to Alex's point, if someone is a horror movie fan,
Yeah.
they should be allowed. The algorithm should be there to guide them
Yeah,
to the
I don't
content
want
they're
kids
more likely to
watching a
consume.
retrospective on Friday the 13th, man. Hell no.
Yeah. Yeah, but at the same time, like, we don't want kids watching it. But if, say, a YouTube channel that has made it clear, like someone who is a consumer with an account says, "Hey, I'm over the age of 18. I am willing to watch this content," it should be their right to have it recommended to them if that's the content they choose to consume, rather than having it completely buried by an overzealous algorithm that chooses to promote stuff that nobody gives a crap about.
Yeah.
And I think that's more the point Alex was trying to make, is that people who age gate their stuff should still have their content recommended, provided that the channels that are being recommended to are one, and it's a simple opt-in. Be like, because I mean, there are a lot of websites that offer that mature content that literally you just have a toggle, show me mature content, and there you go.
What's
That
funny to
should-
me is that what you guys are recommending, YouTube's competition does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just barely noticed with Twitch, like, I actually get more say into what gets recommended to me than I ever have on YouTube. Another platform that I've been kind of experimenting with is Odyssey. And Odyssey, they have this stuff in place. YouTube does not. They just basically go, oh, well, one size fits all. Everybody watches this kind of stuff. Everybody's into, this particular kind of feed. And it's just like, bullshit. Some people want to be able to watch, the horror content and be able to see all the graphic, gory stuff. And I never understood why, YouTube wants to contend with these platforms. They constantly say they do, and they've never implemented features like this that have made the experience on those platforms so much better for individual users. And it just blows my mind that they still have never done this, because I can do exactly what you're saying. Like, there are dedicated live streams that are discussing, old blood pack horror kind of thing. And I can do that easy. And I can opt in, and they say, well, this content is this. And you just press yes and you move on.
Yeah, because
Uh-huh.
even Vimeo has that built into their features for people who upload short films. You rate them and be like, hey, this is content appropriate for this type of audience.
Mhm.
again, if you're gonna have us self-censor and self-regulate, well then allow the people who would consume said content to be able to find it, and rather than recommending us Jimmy Kimmel for the umpteenth time.
Exactly. No, I agree. So yeah, I think we've hit this. C Tactics, is there anything you wanna put in on this one?
No.
All right.
I
all right.
think so far you guys seem to be really pretty fair, in my opinion.
All right.
It's nothing really. You guys touch on everything. You guys are very thorough.
Yeah, it's all the
Your
pent-up
assessment.
anger at YouTube. That's why.
Well,
We've
not
had
only-
this.
Not
Yeah,
only
we've
that,
had this
but like me and Romney
percolating.
just have this aesthetic since we've been doing this for a while. So at that point, like poor Alex, he just kind of gets lost in the flow a little bit, and he kind of doesn't care. But at the same time, then there are people who occasionally like, was Alex even there? Yeah, he was there. He's just that.
Yeah, I mean, lest we forget the running gag of the chess set during Blizzard talk.
Yes, the chess talk, and also we don't have a Nintendo Space Shuttle to talk about anymore, which is what Alex would talk about. And the other thing that, it's funny because occasionally we get Steamboat Taco in our chat, and that's our former buddy, or not our former buddy, but our former co-host Aldo. And Aldo would go out of his way to make sure Alex talked, and I try to do that, and I don't have as great a success rate. I think Alex is just too. He wasn't comfortable with Aldo, but he was comfortable with me. So, yeah.
Well, and yeah, it's just that's a whole separate discussion because sometimes, again, we all have our niches when it comes to topics we can talk about for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yes. So at that point, let's loop back around with our last one. So, C Tactics, what is your last thing that you would fix on YouTube?
Well, this is something I don't know if you guys have ever had issues with, but for me as a creator, it's the playlists. We need like an update on playlists. I think it would be very nice to, because it's not bad as it is, granted, but I think this is one of the things that just needs that, just an update, a facelift even would just be fine, because at the end of the day, it's been the same thing for.
Well, specifically, what are
years
you
and
saying
years.
that is the problem about playlists?
Well, see, the last time I think they changed playlists, if I'm mistaken, they added this feature to where you can make it like it's like this is the official playlist.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you guys know this, but playlists so far right now in the algorithm are treated as like actual videos.
Yes,
So-
they get their own view sets and their own analytics.
Right. And which is I think the last two things they kind of did that were really cool for playlists. But I think it would be cool to further customize the playlist to have something like, offshoots of playlist itself. So maybe you're I don't know, you're 3 videos deep in a playlist.
Mhm.
And you're on a video, and maybe there's another playlist related to that video, and the creator can add a sub playlist for that playlist, like so just really cool shit like that. But as well, just I think a more emphasis on playlists in general would go a long way, because just as it is right now, it's just I feel like people categorize things as like, oh, these are all of my hundreds of videos in one
Yeah.
playlist, instead of what I think it should be, which is highly customized, specialized, short, 3 to 10 video playlists of just content that just delivers, right?
Mhm.
And all people do with playlists is just they throw hundreds of videos into a playlist. I do it because it's
Yeah.
like, what is the point? Because they don't reward you for putting in the time and effort to create a compelling playlist.
Yeah, at this point, it's more the creator creating complacency and convenience for the viewer than it is like doing anything for the creator. It's just, we'll plop all these in one thing. Yeah, I kind of like what you're saying with like the sub playlists. If you had maybe, let's just say you were talking Castlevania, and then you decided to go into an offshoot at one point about Resident Evil, and you've also done Resident Evil videos. Wouldn't it be cool to be able to have like some kind of an annotation going, "Were you interested in that? I've also done Resident Evil," and actually it shoots off into the Resident Evil playlist that you do. That would be an amazing thing. What's funny is YouTube itself has not done anything with playlists, but I'm a guy who usually watches a lot of stuff on Roku's or like smart TV apps. And their app, like the YouTube app there, has done lots in being able to make playlists so much more customizable, or not customizable, but so much more reachable. So like if you, because they never used to have this functionality of being able to find like where you left off. Now you actually get to see the entire playlist like right there as a pane, and you can say, oh, here's where I was, kind of thing. They've been able to do stuff like that. They've also been able to recommend other playlists within the channel. Not necessarily, like if it's a collaboration, it doesn't recommend the other person. It's just within that person's channel. So it's funny that you bring that up, because I've seen more development in that regard on things like Roku's than I have on the YouTube site.
Yeah, it just feels like a feature that they don't have to touch because they don't have to, and that's kind of just a shame, because I think there's just a couple things they could just change that would, I think, make the feature that much more compelling. I mean, I think all of us here can say, like, with experience, how important a playlist is for discovering a new channel,
Yes,
or discovering a new series that you like. It's they're great. They're still great. It's just, I think they, you have a feature there that is so powerful. Why not use it even more than you already have been?
Yeah, it's definitely something that YouTube kind of set and forget. And never did really anything with it, because at some point I actually kind of make the counter argument, like, it's very clear YouTube doesn't care about the playlist, so they shouldn't care about the analytics of the playlist, and yet they do. And then why didn't you ever do anything new with it, kind of thing? Why didn't you allow for creators to be able to experiment and be able to like put something in a beta, like just let us mess around with it and see if maybe we like it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
In regards to playlists, because I agree with you. Like, I'm a gaming YouTuber. I watch a lot of gaming videos, and if I want to watch something on Resident Evil lore, I'm going to want to make sure that these guys have been comprehensive, or that this is still an active project for them. And the way that playlists currently work on the site, you don't know that. You're taking a risk on all of them. And at that point, all you can do is hope that they finished it, and there would be so many other ways that you could be able to advertise via the playlists that YouTube just doesn't allow us to do. So I completely agree with you. Alex, Romney, anything you want to add on this?
Not really, but I do remember back in the past with playlists, back when I was in high school, they did try encouraging a format that they called a lean back feature, where the idea is that it basically, and there was only one channel I knew of that actually tried this, and it didn't really work, and that was the channel Beyond the Trailer by Grace Randolph. Now, like, aside from the whole DC speculation, I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole separate can of worms. But the idea is that she had a series where it would basically be a trailer reaction series, but rather than having the trailer in the video itself, it would basically be a show that had a playlist. Where it's like, okay, here's the intro, then here's the first trailer we're looking at, which would link in the playlist. It would go to the trailer on the studio's YouTube channel. Then it would link to another video in the playlist that she put up saying, hey, here's my thoughts on this trailer. And no, but it didn't really catch on. And I think the big problem with a feature like that was because internet speeds just weren't fast enough to sustain that. Because, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I kind of stopped using playlists for a while early on, because when you have a slow internet connection and you're having to wait for things to buffer between each video as you're going through the playlist, well, it gets kind of frustrating, and it's like, okay, well, why go through this trouble? And so YouTube kind of has experimented in the past, but, well, I get the feeling playlists was probably a feature that they introduced too soon. Like, if they introduced the playlist feature now, people would probably be taking it and running with it.
Yeah.
Whereas since it's been there since, again, the Viacom lawsuit days, it's kind of been one of those features that people just don't really know what to do with because there's no real incentive to use it.
Well, and there's been nothing that's been done with them. So at that point, they're just basically we've had, uploading videos change, like its process changed more than playlists themselves. So at that point, if you gave us like a new button to work with, that'd be cool. I always one thing that somebody mentioned to me a long time ago, and I've always thought was a good idea, was collaboration playlists. So at that point, and this was basically to encourage collaboration with channels, is that you could then basically both work together to maintain this playlist of consistent content that you were working on. And it didn't necessarily have to be like 50 videos. It could just be the series itself. And it could play it in order. And so at that point, I've never understood why that never came into play. Where it's like you could have the two channels kind of work in tandem to maintain this playlist and make sure that it works. And then once it's done, like, just lock it up. Because that's another thing I've also kind of noticed is that, and I've had this problem happen in my channel too from time to time where stuff just doesn't get properly maintained. And so at that point, something happens and a video gets removed. And like when you do Let's Play content, that's abhorrent to people. Is like they are 25 episodes into this Let's Play and 26 isn't anywhere there. For some reason. I don't know why it's gone, but it is. And that just, it ruins it for the potential viewer you have, and now they don't want to support you. And it's not even your fault. So I completely agree on that. Alex, anything you want to add?
On the playlists, not so much, but this did get me thinking about one of YouTube's newer features, and this replaced the old annotation system, but it's the cards, when you see those little icons pop up in the corner of a video.
Yes.
I actually really like those. I think they're pretty nifty, but my complaint with them now is you only can get like a max of like 5 for the pop-up.
It's restricted to 5.
I guess it's just to prevent like the old days when people would just flood their video with those annotation pop-ups, and I get it, those were annoying, but these are a lot less intrusive compared to the old annotations. So I really wish I could do more than 5, because when I did this big new type video a couple months ago now, I covered the vast majority, I think, of shows that I talked about, or at least a lot of the big highlights ones. And I'm like, I want to highlight all the videos I've made about this, about a lot of the specific shows that I talked about that were covered in these old magazines. I think this is a great way to kind of redirect people to some of my older content and kind of keep things going, keep things fresh here, and keep people engaged. And, I can only do 5. So I'm like, okay, I got to really think and pick
and you
carefully.
can only put them in the end of the video. Like the way that it works on the YouTube system, you can only ever put it at the last 20 seconds.
I mean, that's for like the end screen, but I'm talking about like the cards that pop up in the corner when you're watching a video engage. And those, I think, again, they're nifty. I just wish I could do more, because sometimes I do need to share more. Like I just mentioned with that big new type video where I'm like, well, okay, now I really got to be pick and choosy. And well, unfortunately, that did kind of make me want to favor a lot of my more recent stuff, because, well, my early content, I'm certainly appreciative of it, but it is a lot more rough around the edges because I'm still kind of getting my feet wet with a lot more video editing techniques here.
Yeah.
So, of course, I had to kind of favor a lot of my newer content. But to me, that kind of makes me sad, because I still want my older content to be discovered and seen by people, even if it is still rough around the edges.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That is definitely another thing that I think could be worked on. I've always kind of never understood completely why the annotations were completely removed, instead of just heavily kind of basically edited down like the cards, where they can only be used so many times. Because I get what you guys are saying, like 20 different annotation comes up on the screen. And the only way that I could see to fix that was just limit them.
Yep. The main reason they got rid of annotations was because they were trying to switch from Flash to HTML5, and the annotation system did not work with HTML5, and that was pretty much the main reason, is that as a lot of websites were trying to get away from using Flash as the main video player, that's more or less what killed it. But I will say this, and I'm probably in the minority saying this, I miss annotations, not so much because of, well, not because of like a lot of the gimmicky, well, actually it's partially because of a lot of the gimmicky stuff, because it allowed for some really innovative ways that made YouTube filmmaking really unique.
Mhm.
I mean, some of us may remember how there were some of those interactive videos where you would have the annotation appear like, oh, like you have like the video play out and then you get like a choice of, oh, do you do this or do you do this? And you click that and it links to the next video in the sequence down that path where it was like a choose your own adventure sort of thing. People found some really cool ways to use those types of annotations. I mean,
Yeah.
you may remember my truth or fail tokusatsu trivia videos that were built on that system. With cards, we just don't have that flexibility anymore, because instead of being able to put annotations like, say, oh, it's a short film and you're saying you want to highlight a specific object in the frame, like, oh, which weapon do they use? Do they use the baseball bat or the shotgun? Like with annotations, you could literally put the annotation over that in the frame, but with cards, you're basically limited into where you put them. Like with the ones in the
Yeah.
video, it's always in the corner.
Well,
With the end slate, it's always the left and right, or one of the circles. It's boring.
Well, and on top of that, I'll also say that one of the reasons that I think it got removed, or at least that it's managed the way that it is, and this is a dumb one, but I could totally see YouTube justifying it, is because I've seen this also with the end cards that like I do for my videos. YouTube makes the horrible assumption that every creator is a master editor, and therefore they know how to use all the complicated aspects of their editing software, of Final Cut and Premiere and Vegas and all that, to be able to do these on that software. And they don't realize that some people are not that like they're not that editor savvy. And so at that point they put in this just really simplistic system, when in reality you could easily just put in these little toys to be able to manipulate. And one of my examples of this is they just barely added in the clip tool for it, and that's been an amazing thing for somebody like me, where I can actually consider being able to make clips and not have to go into my other editing software to be able to go and do that, because I'm not the most editor savvy. And they just kind of assume that, no, you are, and therefore we don't have to have this because you're already going to make it in your... And that's just not true. Like, a lot of us are learning on the fly. Like, we got very basic rudimentary understandings of the editing software, and some of us even have less than that. And they're just assuming that... At least that's kind of my theory on why they've done things the way that they did.
Yeah. Another aspect is probably also because of the rise of things like Chromecast and Roku, and being like, well, there's no way to really implement these sorts of features when people are watching it on their TVs.
Yep.
Which case, I'm still a bit miffed, because I'm just like, no, there are ways.
Which is
You're just not
because
willing.
the cards work on those tools.
Yeah, it's just if you gave us a little bit more flexibility on how to use those cards, and not limited to just, oh, static card here, or thing in the corner. If you gave us a little bit more freedom of how to implement it, you could find ways to do very creative stuff with it. But, well, again, YouTube's becoming more corporatized, and they're thinking, oh, we need to basically create this engagement machine that basically makes everything adhere to the same basic format. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't even bother with end cards, because it doesn't work with the style of videos I create. It's for me, I find, and I know I'm probably in the minority to say this, I find end cards to be utterly distracting, where it's just a case where, oh, we have these obnoxious things pop up, and yeah, and it's one of the things like, oh, at the end of this video, you see these obnoxious things pop up, and if you're watching on something like Roku and you accidentally hit a button, it's like the video just stops because, like, oh, you highlighted a card, and I'm just like, no, that's not what I wanted to do. It's just, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So final thoughts on this one? I think we pretty much hit the hammer on the head, or the nail on the head.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Romney, the last one that you have.
Well, I mean, I kind of tacked it on to the discussion of annotations, because that would be one
okay.
of the things that
All
I
right.
want to bring back. As for another aspect of it, dang, I had it for a moment there, but I guess one, it was on the tip of my tongue because it was either that or the annotations. Like this was another thing that I guess another. Oh, now I remember. Speaking of obnoxious aspects of YouTube, the ads. There needs to be consistency in how they implement the ads because I am
Yeah.
getting sick of seeing the same ad 5 or so different times, and especially when you're watching a content creator who makes long form videos. And I know in the
all
past,
streaming services need to be able to handle that better because, like, they literally
yeah,
just some error will happen and you will recycle the same ad over and over again.
yeah, and on top of that, it gets very distracting when it's a video where they don't have the ad breaks edited in to make it smooth. Because I know Ben at the Sage had it where he would have actual ad breaks, but problem is under YouTube's current system, the ads don't play at those specific moments that he has planned. Creators need to be given a little bit more control of where
Well,
the
and I
ads are
remember
placed in the video.
Him and some of the other Channel Awesome creators basically saying that they have, they when they were doing things on Tig, they had say in that. They actually
Yeah.
could place the ads. Now YouTube just kind of auto places them,
Well,
and they have
that's partially
no,
because
they have no say in it.
that was more because Blip, that was a feature of Blip specifically, because Blip let people actually like
Mhm.
choose where to put their ads. And for people who produce those larger, longer videos, that's something that they need to give back to creators and be like, hey, let's put these ads in natural breakpoints in our video
Yeah.
rather than having them pop up at random places. And especially when you're watching on Roku, it gets really annoying where you're watching YouTube on Roku, you pause it, you go away for a while, it goes into sleep mode, you boot
And
it up
then
back again,
resets, yeah.
it resets and immediately just goes into an ad,
Mhm.
which it's dumb. The ads are obnoxious, and it's gotten to the point where rather than using my Roku, I'm literally having to use my Chromecast and cast from my computer to the TV instead of using the native app because the ads have just gotten so obnoxious as a result because of crap like that.
Mm.
And it's a case of, hey, if you want YouTubers to create these longer form content to drive that engagement up, give them some control as to where the ads are placed in their video so that way they can do so in a way that feels natural and organic rather than having, say, a video discussing all the ports of Resident Evil 4 suddenly interrupted by the same goddamn Liberty Mutual ad for the umpteenth time.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
so sick of those ads.
see, it's Liberty Mutual for you. It's like Allstate was no, Progressive was the one for me for so long. I got so sick and tired of Flo. I like if I ever met Flo in real life, I'd punch her.
I want to murder that emu. That's my thing. I want to murder the goddamn emu because I am sick of it.
Hey PETA, deal with it. So, all right. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. They should be able to do that because I actually think that would be a creative challenge to be able to put in ads in videos because like we're on a podcast right now. Eventually, podcasts get sponsors. And therefore, we have people that we can sponsor, and we can put those commercials in there. And
yeah,
wouldn't it be great to be able to do that? But no, YouTube just kind of takes that away from us.
yeah. Plus, on top of that, if it's a video that already has a paid promotion in it, why do we have to sit through more ads? It should work the way it does in television, where it's like, oh, this video is presented to you with limited interruptions, be courtesy of this sponsor. If that's something that the channel has arranged, that should be the way it works. We shouldn't have to sit through even more ads when the video itself already has an ad in it.
Yeah. So, first of all, C Tactics, Alex, anything you want to add in on this? Because
Yeah, I totally agree. The ads are intrusive, they're obnoxious, and most of the time I'm watching from my PC, but if I'm watching from my phone, I know I get ad interruptions and it really sucks. So I don't know what happened, why this changed, but
your
there,
old PC was horrible in that regard.
uh-huh.
Oh, it would get pounded with ads.
Yeah, and you know what it used to show you like the ad placements. If you like pulled up the progress bar, you could like see okay all the yellow markers, and I'm like, okay, these are where the ads are. So what I'd like to do when I was watching on my phone originally, I'd scroll the progress bar to get the ads to go ahead and play and skip them if I can, and then rewind to watch the video so I don't have to get it interrupted. I don't know why they took that feature away. I guess they really just want you to watch the ads. Of course they do. So bring that back at the very least if you're not going to give us any control over the ad placement.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. See, anything you want to add?
Not really. I
No,
think you guys bring up a lot of fair points. As
it's
the
definitely one of
trend.
those- I'm for as much creativity as you can possibly put into content creation, and I don't like when I get limited in that regard.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I totally agree.
So at that point, unfortunately, my last one got taken, I think, by C Tactics, because one of the things that I recommended was it was a little bit different because like you wanted to be able to kind of. Actually, it might have been Romney, where basically we have more say into what gets suggested to us. And what mine was going to be is basically a customizable homepage that any of us could make for ourselves. And we could make multiple different suggestion kind of feeds where, like, if we wanted to get recommended certain game content or certain anime content, we could get it. And more importantly, with those tinier suggestion feeds, maybe work something out so that creators you may have never seen in that medium could get spotlighted in them. Because the way that it works is like there's only one suggested feed, and that's overrun by basically paying customers. All right. Because the Tonight Show is paying to be able to have that featured in the suggestion feed. So at that point, but when I started, like, that was reserved for people who are up and coming. And so wouldn't it be cool to be able to customize a homepage that, well, even on like the Roku or Chromecast or things like that, where you get stuff that actually matters to you recommended to you. Like, I cannot begin to tell you how many times I've been like, what the fuck is CNN doing in my feed? I never watch it. And then I do what everybody's supposed to with the algorithm. I go in there, I say, don't recommend, I don't want this video, and I say exactly why I don't want it, and it pops up tomorrow. Because, and which to me is just like, wait. Even for an AI, this is really simple. Just don't put this in my feed anymore, and you're not even letting them do that. So at that point, let us like actually customize those feeds in that regard. So like if I'm just in a particular mood to go research Horizon Zero Dawn, I have a suggested feed that is all Horizon Zero Dawn creators kind of thing, if I want to be that narrow. Or if I want to see like up and coming anime creators, this would be a way to be able to do that. And I've never understood why they didn't do that. At least to be able to say, hey, because this would be good PR, hey, we're actually letting the smaller creators get highlighted. It's no longer that you have to worry about getting up to the trending tab. You can create another kind of trending tab.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That's what I'm saying, is like it kind of got covered already, but like, I don't know how many times I've seen this in a YouTube rewind. You can make your experience your own. Bullshit! No, I can't.
I remember seeing the remixes of the YouTube Rewind that were more honest than the actual YouTube Rewind.
Absolutely. I watch those instead of the official ones now. Because A, they're funnier, and B, they actually can, properly make fun of YouTube.
Yep, plus, not gonna lie, We Are Number One is a bop.
Yes. So yeah, that's kind of my deal. So I don't know if it necessarily warrants any additional discussion, because I guess we're all kind of in agreement. We would like to be able to have more ways to be able to customize our experience, and YouTube just isn't willing enough to give us that. But man, wouldn't it be great to be able to just like basically make one where it's like new stuff from people you're subscribed to, and it's just like, currently you have that. You have the subscriptions tab that shows you all that. But wouldn't it be great to have that on your main page?
Yeah, I remember the days when subscriptions were the homepage.
Mm-hmm.
Those were nice.
Those were nice. And now it's just endless.
Now it's just Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, it really is. Just Jimmy Kimmel, CNN. I don't know how many times I've seen... The other one that really irritates me is, like, I go and do a little bit of homework. Some kind of drama is happening on YouTube that maybe we have to talk about on the podcast. And I go and do my homework. I watch 1 or 2 videos. And then from there on in, that creator is highlighted on my channel, and I don't care. Like when I had, people wanted us to talk for so long about Ethan Klein versus Keemstar. And so, like, I went and did my due diligence and did the homework, and then Drama Alert and H3 Podcast all over my screen. And I didn't want them there. It's like, get off. I'm more interested in this Legacy of Kain video than I am in any of the shit you've done in the last year.
Yeah. I'm just tempted that someone needs to make a channel where they just, instead of Drama Alert, they call it Llama Alert. And it's just videos of llamas. Just videos of llamas just doing llama things.
I'm sure that exists, and all it would do is take a little bit of legwork to find, and it's just like a 24-hour live stream of llamas. I'm sure it exists somewhere.
Yeah,
I'd be okay with that.
Sounds great.
Yeah, like that's definitely something that I would like to see happen, but I think we've pretty much kind of hit that nail on the head. So I think that covers everything. So we have all three for everybody, and how appropriate, because we are coming up on 3 hours, and I got to get to bed. As much as I love talking to you guys, I got to get to bed because I got kids to take care of in the morning, and especially one that's potty training. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. Sea Tactics, it was amazing to have you on once again. We will probably have to do additional stuff because people love the other episode, especially since I named it something Marvel and nothing Marvel ever occurred. So I get that, and I also get, please have Surfer Dude back on.
Surfer Dude.
I love it. Alex is the hipster. You're Surfer Dude now. So if people are not familiar with your content, how do they find you, and what can they look forward to from you?
You can find me at youtube.com/Sea Tactics. I do seasonal anime. So every season, new batch of anime comes out. I cover them. I talk about them. Yeah, been doing it for 10 years.
Very cool.
Still like doing it.
Yes, and we will also, because I forgot to put this in the previous one on the RSS feed, we will also put up the most recent King of Anime podcast, because that is another thing that you guys should be listening to. I've listened to them from time to time. They don't necessarily always have something that I have an interest in, but it's still an interesting discussion being happened. Well, the interesting thing is, like, you, Rising, and Alex, that you all cover specific niches of anime, and then as Alex likes to point out numerous times, I'm the filthy scrub because I watch all the mainstream stuff. And so at that point, like, when you guys cover Attack on Titan, okay, I get that. But then you guys go into Violet Evergarden, I'm like, what the fuck is that?
That is a mainstream anime.
Okay, bad example, but you kind of get my point.
It'd be like Sunny Boy or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, it's like, okay. The other thing, too, I actually forgot to take care of this, and I might as well just take care of it now. In case you haven't heard, so we have a little podcast called Geek News Marathon Night, where me and my wife actually go and watch an anime, and we just barely finished Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I don't know if you've watched that or not, but we have been advertising this. We will be doing a live stream in a few weeks where we are going to basically wrap up Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and we are inviting people if they want to come on. So if you got something to say about FMA Brotherhood, you are more than welcome, sir.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's been a while since I've seen it, but absolutely.
Well, this is my wife's first time, and she's never seen 03. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting experience. I already know Rising wants to get in there just to see all the weird opinions that she has. So with that, Alex, the Shadow Blazer, how do people find your content?
Of course, I'm also on YouTube. Shadow Blazer 3000 is my channel, and I also do anime content. Mine's a little more general. I tend to review shows as in a whole package rather than seasonal. Sometimes they're newer shows, and sometimes they're older shows. So please check me out. Exciting content to come.
Okay, and since you brought up your older content, I have to do this because, once again, it just gets recommended in my feed endlessly, even though I've watched it before, and YouTube just doesn't seem to care, is your Dot Hack timeline. Holy shit, man. How many times has that been recommended?
I know, that video blew up.
Yeah, it showed up in my recommendations as well recently. It's weird. I mean, I did sit down and watch it because
I made the joke to my wife, like, we see that once a year, at least. in our recommended feed, and she uses mine. So she's like, "Isn't that Alex's video?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is. It's being recommended to us for the umpteenth time."
Well, you want to know the weird coincidence? The day that it ended up in my recommendations, literally earlier that day, I'd managed to snag a copy of, of Dot Hack Infection for the PS2. And so literally the day that I snagged that copy, suddenly in my recommendations, the Dot Hack timeline. I'm just like, this is some straight up Skynet stuff going on.
Well, it's also another reason that I totally don't have this as an ulterior motive, but every time that I go into that video and I see what gets recommended after, guess what it is, Alex?
One of my dot hack videos, or
no, Draken Shadow Dot Hack Infection Part 1.
Oh yeah, perfect.
So,
All right.
I was gonna joke with you at some point. Did you just manually put that in?
I wish I could, but no.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that happens. Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah. How do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can get a hold of me at my handle, Studio Ghost Utah. That is my handle on YouTube, Facebook, and SoundCloud. I try to upload to all three, but currently I only have an upload on one of those platforms, being YouTube, and that is my recently completed and recently released short film, The Doctor's Last Confession. Basic premise, it's basically a found footage take on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It took me a fair bit of time to get things to look just so if you have the chance, I highly recommend you give it a watch. I certainly appreciate it. And in addition to it being on YouTube, you can also find it on my Instagram, Romney Does Art, which is where I also upload, book reviews, pictures of stray cats, food that I cook, and, the occasional angsty comic, with some angsty comics actually down the pipeline that may be uploaded in the near future. And those are the places where you can find me.
All right. Actually, what's interesting when I looked at that, just the way that you have it positioned and shot, it made me think of that one Star Trek DS9 episode where Ben Sisko has to justify the horrible actions that he's committed throughout a week. And I'm just like, wow, he's actually doing it in this format. I don't think he even knows that he is. So.
Well, I mean, the format, it's meant to basically look like it's shot on VHS, and so. Yeah. That's why it looks the way it does.
I'll have to see if I can recommend that episode to you just to see what you think of it. But yeah, if you guys want to be able to find me, you guys are already on my YouTube channel, Drac2326, where you guys can check out the live stream content that I am putting out regularly, especially with my wife Andrea. Currently, we are trying so hard to make our way through the last 4 bosses of Bloodborne. That goddamn Orphan of Kos is just destroying me. And as soon as we beat him, I'm pretty sure every other boss after that is going to be a cakewalk, since we are just overpowered for everything else. But yeah, we are currently making our way through that. And also, you guys can join us tomorrow, as since it is October, as it has been mentioned in our live chat, we will be starting up our playthrough of The Evil Within. So you guys,
good game.
I hope so. I've never actually played it. So we'll be tackling that blind starting tomorrow. So you guys can join us for that. You can also support the podcast by supporting the RSS feed, which we ask you to do, which is geekynro.libsyn.com. That's where everything is. A lot of people just barely got mad at me. Hey, Drac, why the fuck did you get rid of Geek News Movie Night John Wick? Well, I didn't. It's on the RSS feed now. Because F YouTube. YouTube doesn't advertise it. The RSS feed does. So at that point, that's why that's there. Also, Geek News Marathon Night. A lot of people got mad at me because the most recent episode, YouTube people have to wait till Sunday. But the RSS feed, they got it. So that's where you want to be able to get all the brand spanking new content, including some newer stuff that's coming down the pipeline. So you guys can look forward to that. Also, you can support us directly on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, and Player.fm, and we recommend that you guys do that as well. Do not worry about social media right now. I'm trying to rethink that process and whether or not I'm even going to take it to a social media platform, because ultimately, guys, just follow my Twitter. That's where everything is being advertised right now. That's where it all is. And also where I start making snarky comments about things that we might be covering in the future. And of course, if you guys want to email us stories or suggestions for topics like this, and maybe even some guests, as I know that our buddy C-Tactics has been recommended numerous times by his loyal fan base, and I'm very happy about that. And also other people, you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. Romney, Alex, it's been so amazing to be able to do this pilot episode with you guys of Geek News Roundtable. And also, C Tactics, thank you so much for taking time out of your obviously busy schedule to be able to hang out with a couple of YouTube schlubs like us. Because
No,
obviously...
not at all.
What was that?
You guys are not schlubs, not at all.
Well, I just love the whole subscriber discussion. You know, you're the one who's basically dwarfing all of us. So at that point, we have to look at you and do the Wayne's World. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. So
Of all the times for the mic to cut out.
oh, did my mic cut out? Oh, goddamn.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it meant that we were blessed with, the pantomime version.
Yes. So at that point, once again, thank you so much, and we will find ways to be able to bring you back on as long as schedule willing and everything like that. Who knows? Maybe we'll even try and get you on a Geek News movie night. That might be interesting. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. So thank you guys so much for joining us, especially to the live chat that joined us tonight as we discussed YouTube issues. Something tells me that Mama Susan eventually had issues with us discussing what was wrong with YouTube, but that's just me. But thank you guys so much, and we will be back next week for more Geek News reviews and opinions. So for myself, for Romney, for Alex, and for C Tactics, we will see you guys.